Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, June 20, 2021. We have Michael, Kwame, Ron, Sandy, and Associate Denise and Agent Dave Bichette with us tonight. So Ron, first hearing, please.
All right. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Herbert Wyndham Co. Remodeling Plus, 38 Lake Drive, Plymouth, Mass. 02360. To reconstruct a deck located on Assessors Map 35, Lot 7, 85 Edgewater Drive, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. And who's here to represent this project? Anybody?
Over.
He may be late to the meeting, Sandy, possibly, so you may have to table it.
Okay, I need a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Motion to table.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to table. Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, it's tabled until we see Mr. Wyndham or someone represented to him join us. Okay, next one, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Linda Rose Co. Innovation Construction Company Incorporated, P.O. Box 815, West Wareham, Massachusetts 02576, to raise an existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling located on Assessors Map 50D, Lot 264, 11 Vernal Street, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. And who's here representing this project? Linda, you're muted. You have to unmute.
Okay, I
Thank
did
you.
it. My bill, Miss Keith is supposed to be on here as well. I don't see him yet.
Well, Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
Okay, let me just get this plan up here. The project is at 11 Vernal Street in the Swifts Beach area, and the project involves the reconstruction of this existing dwelling and also adding two small additions to square off the footprint of the house. And this is within a coastal flood zone. So the existing house is to be removed and then reconstructed in the same general area, but adding these two small additions on the corners within coastal flood zone AE elevation 15. The project is not in the buffer zone to any other wetland resource areas. There's really no grade changing proposed for the project. So I would recommend the approval of the project with a negative determination number 2.
Okay, Linda, are you you have any more to add, or you want to wait until?
The two small additions on the back, actually it's the bulkhead is in the middle. So what we're doing is just evening it off.
Okay, just squaring it off.
Yes,
Okay.
that's it. And because the house is 4 inches too low, to raise it up wouldn't be cost effective. And because everything is out of code, today's code, so it makes more sense just to take it down and start over.
Okay. Questions on the board? Michael,
Not here.
Kwame,
No, thanks.
Ron,
So you mentioned you're taking down the entire house and building new, or you just, what?
No, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so it's an entire new building.
Yes.
And you're adding some footage. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to understand if it was a remodel or if you were actually,
Well, it started out to be a remodel, but then it was 4 inches too low and had to be raised up. And then all the joists underneath are not code. So it just turned out to be a mess, and it would be, like I said, not cost effective to
yeah,
remodel the whole thing.
more expensive to do it
Exactly.
fully, but at the same time, the money that you're going to spend. Okay, I get it. I just wanted to understand.
yeah.
Okay, no other
So-
questions.
Okay, thank you. Denise, any questions?
Nope, Ron covered it.
How old is, Linda, how old is the building?
Oh, I think it was built in the 40s.
Have you had conservation, historic commission approve the demo yet?
Of that, I don't know. I'm not sure about that question. My builder should have been able
Okay.
to answer that. Yeah.
All right,
I know I had to go to special permitting, and we've already got that approved.
okay.
Hi, folks. I'm joining the
So my
meeting. I
question was,
apologize.
my question was out of line. It really has nothing to do with conservation. I'm just wondering if you had gone to historic commission yet. Yes, Keith, did you want to add anything?
If there's a question with regard to historic, it has not been brought up by the building department that it was a
Okay.
necessary sign off.
All right, because I think there's a 75-year. Anyway, ask about it, please. Anything else? Anybody on the line that would like to comment on this project? Hearing and seeing no one?
I move to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion to close in a second. Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, the hearing is closed.
I make a motion to approve the project with a negative determination number 2.
Second,
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, so please, it's approved. And before you start any work, see Mr. Bichette for the paperwork, okay?
Good thing.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Cremisa Park Improvement Association, Co. Donna Foley, 26 Colts Way, Attleboro, Mass. 02703, to repair a concrete step for beach nourishment and to place a swim mat located on Assessors Map 52, Lot 1001, 0 Marks Cove Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for this project?
Foley and Marilyn. Yes, Donna Foley and Marilyn Jordan.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette, it's your turn.
Sure. So this project site is in the Cremisa area at the Cremisa Park Improvement Association's main beach area, which is identified as 0 Marks Cove Road. And the project involves several items. One is to repair a concrete step that's at the edge of the road and the beach at this particular site. This is some work that they had done previously, and we had basically issued an enforcement order for them to come in and file this application to address that. So that's why, part of the reason why this has been submitted. And also they wish to get permission to do some beach nourishment on their beach by placing approximately 12 yards of beach sand on the upland part of their beach. And the last thing was they were looking for permission to put this floating swim mat out in the water. Once I understood what that was, that's really something that the harbor master would permit in terms of a free floating float. It's not attached to the land. It's something someone would swim out to, and typically that's something that's permitted through the harbor master's office. In terms of the other two items, the stair repair work has already been done, and I think that's fine in terms of the way it has been done. And in terms of the beach nourishment, the volume of material is not that significant and would be spread by hand all on the upland part of the beach, and it would have to be compatible sand material. So I would be okay with permitting that as well. So I didn't really have any further questions other than to state again that the beach nourishment would have to be on the upland part of the beach and not covering over any marsh grass or beach grass at the site.
Thank you. Marilyn and Donna, any comments?
Well, we have a picture, but I don't know if you can see me. This is where it's gonna go, where these picnic tables are. It's the dry part of the beach. I don't know if you can see it. I'm holding it up.
Yep.
And then this is another one too. And because we have our turtles are nesting right here now. So we're not really, we're trying to put the sand back here. We usually draw it back, but because of our little terrapins, they won't hatch until the end of June. We don't want to disturb any of that sand. So we want this just on the upland area where it never gets wet.
All right.
And that shows in this one.
Okay. Questions on the board? I'll start with Michael.
The mat, you said the mat's gonna be out in the water only, I'm sorry, it's gonna be out in the water rather as floating, so the people who live in the area could go out to and enjoy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
but it's, and we take it in and we take it out each time. It's not gonna be anchored. It doesn't need a mooring to hold it in place. We're gonna take it out and then roll it up. It's neoprene. It can be rolled up and then brought back in. It's light.
Oh, okay, then you just answered the question that I was about to ask next time. Thank you.
Okay, Kwame.
I think David mentioned compatible sand or soil that you're trying to replenish in that area. What kind of materials were you?
We were looking at washed sand, which we would get not, at a gravel place, but not the kind that they use for concrete with little rocks in it. Washed sand like you'd use for a beach or a sandbox, that type of sand, because the sand that's comes in from probably the point from Mr. Gleason's, and it washes down the sand that's there. So it's rather washed sand, very little rocks in it, or pebbles.
Thank you.
Ron?
Hey, Dave, would we require an analysis on that to make sure that it's compatible?
Yes, that's something we typically require for any of these sorts of projects. So yes, that would be incorporated into this as well.
Okay, yeah, just because I want them to just make sure that there's an understanding that whatever they're putting has to be tested first before it goes out and, purchase everything that they need. So I just wanted to make sure that that was understood, because I know that's what we've done in the past. So that's the only question, is just making sure that it is actually analyzed prior to it being put in.
Denise?
Would we bring a sample to you, Dave?
You'd bring a sample to the place where you're trying to purchase the sand from, and they would match it up to their products to make sure that it's compatible.
Oh, okay.
And then do we get a letter stating that it's compatible to bring down to you?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
correct.
Denise, question?
No, everybody answered them except to exactly where this was. I obviously didn't find it when I went out. Plus a letter, okay.
So for Donna and Marilyn, what road off of Cremisa would you take in order to find this beach?
Cohasset. So you'd go down Cremisa Road until you saw the water on the left-hand side. And then the next set of streets, 3 streets, is Cremisa Park. And that would be the first one on the left, Cohasset.
Cohasset, thank you.
Thank you. Have you ever had beach nourishment done before at this site?
No, what we've
Okay,
done is pull back. But I don't want to pull back anymore, Sandy, because I don't want to disturb those eggs.
okay. So the idea of having to match the sand is new, and I'm glad it was brought up. Because what we find that if it's not matching what's there, it erodes very quickly in rain and stuff like that. So it has to be the light type of sand that you got there, so you don't introduce something of a different size or weight or something in to cause the erosion. Dave, is this the place we found them covering the beach grass?
Yes. They
When
have
they
since,
came-
they have since removed that tarp from the beach
Yes, I know
grass.
that.
Yeah.
Did we find them at the time when we found that, or that they were working on the repairing the concrete steps? And we already issued a fine for that?
No, not at this point.
But the concrete steps have now been repaired
Yes,
without approval?
yes.
Okay. I guess the commission knows where I'm going with this.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now, if we're talking here, we're talking approval for 2 components. One, after the fact approval for the repairing of the concrete steps and the approval of the 12 yards of beach sand. We are not including approval for the floating mat. That is something that you have to go through Gary Buckminster and Natural Resources, correct?
That's correct.
Is there anybody on the line that would like to comment on this project? I'm hearing none, and before we close the hearing, any discussion regarding the fine?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty standard across the board with any work that was either started or completed prior to approval. And I think we've been pretty solid on the $300 fine.
Okay,
So I think that's what it needs to be.
thank you. Marilyn, Donna, do you realize why you're being fined the $300?
Well, we just paid a $300 fine.
Wait a minute, David, I thought we didn't, did we already find them?
I'd have to go back and look, but I didn't think we had. I'd have to double check that. If that's the case, then I guess it's covered, but I'd have to double check. I didn't think that had been done, but I'd have to go back and review the records. And of course, I'm not in my office to do that.
And I'm not in my office either. Marilyn, do you think it was because of the enforcement order?
Well,
Okay, all
yeah,
right, never mind.
because I think what happened was they came to, they saw we had covered the grass because of the ticks. And someone must have not liked that. And so conservation came down and they told us to take that out. At the same time, they saw the steers. So they said, you didn't get a permit for the steers, so $300 fine we paid. But,
All right,
I'm not sure now whether
That's
that was for the
no,
top.
so
or the steps.
sorry, Mr. Pichette will check his records if in fact that's been paid, and there is no additional fine being issued at this particular time. But if it has not been, then we will be asking for the 300, but Mr. Pichette will check the records first and let us know at the next meeting where that stands.
Okay.
So
All right.
We're just gonna leave the fine, leave that open for now until the next
Leave
meeting.
that open. Because
Okay.
in fact, it may have been issued at the time the enforcement order was discussed.
Okay. so-
Okay. So, and nobody else, there's nobody to talk about this project online. If not, we'll take someone to make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second,
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor to close the hearing, Michael,
Yes,
Kwame,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, the hearing is closed.
So on this one, Dave, we're going to approve it pending a compatible analysis on the sand, right?
Yes, and a negative determination number 2 with the condition that a sieve analysis be conducted and that the results be given to us before any beach nourishment is placed on the site.
Okay, so I move to approve the project with a negative determination 2 with the condition of pending sieve analysis for match on the material being put in, and that the letter be handed to Dave prior to the work being completed.
Thank you. That's the motion.
second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes,
Kwame,
Yes,
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes. All right, it's approved, and please see Mr. Bichette, and we wait for that analysis of that sand before you can do the putting the beach sand on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Next, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131 and Section 40, and the Wareham Wetlands Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021, at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Brad Holmes, care of Tom Rue, Sprink Design, 59 Clay Street, Middleborough, Mass. 02346. To upgrade a septic system located on Assessor's Map 4, Lot H5, 2 Tinkers Lane, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
I believe
Yes, I'm here. My name,
yeah, go ahead.
my name is Tom Rue. I'm the civil engineer who did the design.
Okay, Mr. Bichette, your turn.
The project site is at 2 Tinkers Lane in Onset, and the project involves upgrading a septic system at this site within a coastal flood zone. So the existing septic system is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen reducing system. And this is just outside the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland, which is across Valley Road from the subject site. And also within a coastal flood zone, Zone AE elevation 14. There's really no grade changes proposed at the site. It's a Title V upgrade, which I would recommend approving with a negative determination number 2.
Tom, anything to add to that narrative?
No, that pretty much covered everything.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Michael,
No, not here.
Kwame,
no questions, thanks.
Ron,
No questions.
Denise,
No questions.
and Sandy has no questions. Is there anybody on the line that would like to comment on this project?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion to close the hearing, and I heard a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes,
Kwame,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, the hearing is closed.
Make a motion to approve the project with a negative determination number 2.
Thank you.
I can't get my camera to work.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second, and
I have-
some. I'm not sure that what that gentleman just said about his camera not working, but not sure if that was the
That's-
owner or not, but
So we
Anyway.
have a motion and a second to, for approval of a -2. All in favor, Michael,
yes,
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, so it's approved. Please see Mr. Bichette for the paperwork before you start anything. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll do. All right, thanks. All right, bye.
You,
All right, next, please.
All right. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 PM on the request to amend an order of conditions for Angela Howard, 10 Bog Iron Road, West Wareham, Mass. 02576. To request a plan
Okay.
modification to reconfigure an additional located on Assessors Map 101, Lot 13, 10 Bog Iron Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project? Dave, do you think there's somebody online?
I'm not certain if there is or not, to be honest with you.
Okay, tell us what they want to change.
The nature of the project at this site, which is 10 Bog Iron Road, originally involved this plan that we're looking at, which was for the construction of this addition right here. They basically want to reconfigure the addition layout, and I have the other plan here to that configuration. So if you notice, this was the original. This is the proposed change. It's still within the buffer, still within the limit of work that we approved. So I really have no problem with the proposed reconfiguration. It's just basically a shift of the layout, but still essentially a very similar project to what we already approved. So I would recommend the approval of the plan change with the same conditions that we had previously, but just referencing the revised plan.
Thank you. Questions? Michael,
no questions.
Kwame,
No questions, thank you.
Ron,
Did they happen to say what the changes were for? Was there an issue with what they were trying to do, or is it just they, did they mention anything about that, Dave?
From what I gather, I think initially this was the plan all along, but when the notice was originally submitted, a previous iteration of the project got submitted instead of this. And so that's where the problem lied. They always had wanted this configuration apparently in the first place. So that's how it was explained to me.
Okay, so they submitted an incorrect plan. Okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect anything that was previously conditioned?
No, it's all within the lawn area of the backyard. So it's, like I said, just a change in the shape of the addition, basically.
Okay, that's it.
Denise, any questions?
None.
And I have none. Anybody on the line like to comment on this project?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Michael,
Yes,
Kwame,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Andy. Yes, the hearing is closed.
I make a motion to approve the updated plans on the previous order of conditions and plan approval for this project.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes,
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, the project is approved. Next, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protections Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 PM on the request to amend an order of conditions for Thomas Parento, care of Cape and Islands Engineering, 800 Falmouth Road, Mashpee, Massachusetts, 02649. To request a plan modification to add patios and change pool location located on Assessors Map 20, Lot 1035-C, 13 Over Jordan Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the line representing this project?
Yes, good evening. Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering.
Okay, Dave, please.
Yeah, so as we just heard, this site is at 13 Over Jordan Road, and the project involves plan modifications to this previously approved project. So we had issued an order of conditions at this site for the construction of a home and also the reconstruction of a pool and patio and pool house. They've since decided to change the layout of the patio and pool over in this area right here. So this portion of the plan is the most significant change at the site. And it looks as though a lot of that work has already been done already. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, that is correct.
So again, the changes are within what was the limit of work that we approved. But the pool configuration, you can kind of see it underlying in this gray outline. That would have been the original pool and patio location right there. So that's the nature of the changes. They're also showing the house over here that is shifted from its original location to this location, but that's something we had actually given them approval for at a previous meeting, but they're just reflecting it on this plan.
Okay. So there are, if I understand, there were 9 changes being representative in their letter to you on May 19th.
Yes.
If this is Mark Dibb, if you'd like, I could go through each 9 real quick.
Yes, please, Mark.
Okay, if Dave wants to hover. So number 1 is the house location that he has already discussed. It actually moved farther away from the resource areas. Number 2 is an addition of a concrete slab underneath this dwelling in order to support a elevator well and the supporting equipment to that. So this is underneath the roof line of the building. Again, outside the 100-foot buffer. As far as impacts to resource area, it is relatively minor. Again, that's under the existing building. Number 3 is physically out in the field, it looks like a small lighthouse. It's just basically housing some pump equipment right in that area. Again, that is outside the 100-foot wetland buffer. It's just some supporting utility infrastructure that they have added. Number 4, which is down at the, so I think a condition of one of the approvals, there was previously used granite curbing on a different portion of the site, and they've reused some of that existing material and basically created a landscape curb in that area, again within the limit of work that was already approved, and they've reused some of the granite curbing. Number 5 is some artificial grass pervious surface. You can see it's partially over the proposed the original proposed pool and patio. It's also going to be used as a bocce court. Again, it's pervious and as well within the limit of work that included the pool, patio, and some grading that was previously approved. Number 6 is off of an approved or an existing structure. They've rehabilitated these 2 structures to be outdoor pavilion type structures. And at the rear of that, and again, mostly outside the buffer, you can see that green line cuts through, is a more supporting equipment infrastructure, as well as bathroom facilities that will go along that were previously approved. And there is a septic system that nothing has changed from the approved septic system design, just to the left of that. So we didn't list that as an amendment. And number 7 is the actual pool. Again, it's set back a little bit further from the resource area, I think only about a foot. And it's just a fancier pool, I guess, is an easy way to put it, versus the rectangular pool that was approved. But again, within the limit of work that was already approved. And number 8 is actually to revegetate some areas. This entire area had 3 existing buildings and was lawn, and so it's actually a revegetation. It's a pervious, we're calling it a natural garden area. So it'll fill in between the back of the pool and the limit of work, as well as number 9, again, is outside the buffer, and they used more of that existing granite curbing that was on site, and used it as like a terrace wall to protect a tree, as well as blend in the elevations of the pool. So I think we outlined that, yes, there has been some changes, and we came into this project kind of midway. It was permitted by another engineering firm. So when we were certifying the septic systems, we noticed some changes and talked to Dave, and created this amendment request to cover everything, even things outside the buffers, just to make sure we were current with plans. And again, have outlined that even though they're not, some of these things were not on the plans, I feel they're pretty well orientated to be the same or less impact to the resource areas. So it can open up to any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. Questions on the board, Michael?
Yes, when it comes to the pool, I imagine the special conditions rather still going to apply, where that when the water has to be drained, that's still got to be serviced and not just drained into, say, the nearby bay or into nearby salt marsh areas. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The conditions would be similar to what were approved previously. That's correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Kwame,
No questions right now. Thank you.
Ron,
I don't think I have any questions on the changes. I just have a question on, you said that this work has already been completed or is near completion, Dave?
That's correct.
I mean, I know it's within I know that looks like most of it, if not all of it's within the limit of the previous plans, but I mean, I don't know, does anybody else have issue with the changes being made prior to us having the ability to either confirm or not confirm what could have been done?
anybody want to question that? I'm hearing none. My feeling is that I think they're taking the steps to make sure when they do need a certification of compliance, that the project is well documented. I don't know.
It's been typical, Sandy, where fines have been issued for this sort of thing. So just throwing that out
Okay.
there for consistency.
Okay, so Ron,
So, I mean, so I guess the question is gonna lie, I know that it sounds like there's a second engineer that's kind of stepped in the middle of this. Now, did you guys, I just want to get an understanding before we talk about which direction we're going here. The changes that were they made prior to you guys taking over the project and you completed them? I just want to understand the history of the changes that were made and who made them and whatnot.
Mark, can you respond?
Yes, the changes that were made by the, I'll just say the site contractor, I guess. As soon as we noticed via certifying septics and different things like that, we did as built as much as possible. We did request a specific plan, going forward. We requested a specific plan in order to show on this plan we've provided the fullest extent of changes from the owner and from the contractor. So we would both document what has been already changed and built in the field, as well as document anything, possibly anything else that they would propose. And so that's what this plan in front of you is a final, 100% proposal to include both, unfortunately, some things that were built that weren't according to plan, as well as just the final proposal.
And just to point out also, for those who may not recall, this is also the same site where we had a previous violation where work was done on this property that shouldn't have been done after an order of conditions had already been issued. So we already did issue a fine previously for the violation of clearing all this vegetation out on this property here.
Yeah, okay, I remember that. Yep. I remember that.
So this is sort of not the same as this violation in terms of clearing wetlands, but, again, work being done that was not permitted, basically.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Mark, so what you're saying is that the contractor and the owner made changes to what was approved?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Ron.
So I think that you just clarified my answer. I think that fines need to be issued to both the contractor and the homeowner, especially where this is kind of, I guess for lack of better terms, it's a habitual offender because they've been fined for something previous. So I think that, with standing with consistency, a fine of $300 to the contractor and a fine of $300 to the homeowner for making changes without getting prior approval from the commission.
Okay, so Denise, any questions?
No, I was just trying to understand what had happened. And I think you clarified it for me that it was between the contractor and the owner prior to this gentleman taking over the project.
And he's just the engineer and he's
Right.
making his very attempt to make sure that everything that's been done has been documented and now being approved.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
is there anybody online that would like to comment on this project? None,
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, the hearing is closed.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the changes as being proposed by Cape and Island Engineering, and also the issuance of a fine of $300 for both the homeowner and contractor for completing work on an approved plan with changes without prior approval from the commission.
Thank you. That's the motion.
Second,
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. 400, and I'm not going to say get your paperwork from Dave before you start the work, because the work has been done. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
you.
Next, please.
All right, notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetlands Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 PM on the request to amend an order of conditions for Primetime Properties, Inc., James Duffy, Co. Grady Consulting LLC, 71 Evergreen Street, Suite 1, Kingston, Massachusetts, 02364. To request a plan modification to add a patio located on Assessors Map 22, Lot B, 46 Winship Avenue, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
Yes, great.
You have a bad connection.
Try that again. Rick Grady.
I'm still having a difficult time hearing them.
Yeah, it's sounding robotic.
Well, okay,
It's Rick Grady that's representing the owners there. And
Yes.
I don't know if we should try to get him on cell phone or whatever. I don't know. Do you want me to try
We'll
to get a
see.
hold of him?
we'll see where that goes. It won't hurt, and because his voice is very garbled. But in the meantime, Mr. Bichette, will you reach to the project, please?
Yes, the project site is at 46 Winship Ave. And this request is to amend an approved site plan at this site to include a proposed patio that was not shown on the originally approved plan. So as you can see in the area outlined in red, they're proposing to place a patio in that space. This is outside the 30-foot no activity zone to the top of the coastal bank. And the area is part of the landscape yard area currently. There's no significant grade changes being proposed as part of this work. And again, it is within the approved limit of work that we had set for the order of conditions for the other work that's going on at the site. So I don't have a problem with the proposed change. The only thing I would add is again, that this either be a pervious material in terms of the material for the patio, or that some subsurface drainage be provided for that area if it is to be impervious.
So the question is, what is the proposed patio going to be made of?
Hopefully you can.
Okay,
sorry,
can
go
you
ahead.
hear Rick? Go ahead.
Yes, hopefully my connection's better here now.
Yes.
I believe it's going to be travertine like the patio on the other side of the house. For that, we had done a crushed stone trench along the edge of the patio. I think we can easily accommodate that here as well.
Okay. Rick, anything else to add to the comment?
No, it's a pretty straightforward area. A large portion of it's already gravel. The retaining walls and the stairs, the stone walls there, they're already in place. It's really a gravel, almost back of the house that they want to clean up to match the front of the house.
Okay. Questions on the board, Michael?
No questions, thank you. I'd step out there for a second. Go ahead.
Kwame,
No questions, thank you.
Ron,
Sorry, so Dave, the crushed stone that he's talking about doing around the perimeter of the patio, would that be sufficient in your eyes from a drainage perspective for runoff off of this patio?
Yes, I believe it would be. On this side, you can see they did that along the edge of the patio over here. And so as long as it was consistent with that sizing, then it should be fine.
Okay, that's the only question I have.
Denise,
No questions.
I have no questions. Is there anybody on the call that would like to comment on this project?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, the hearing is closed.
And I make a motion to approve the change to the previous order of conditions to add the patio to the plan
With the drainage associated with it.
with the addition of the crushed stone drainage around the perimeter to match the existing patio that was already approved.
That's the motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, approved.
Thank you, everyone.
That's your paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next one, please.
All right, notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 PM on the notice of intent for BERE LLC, Adam Shoemaker, care of Beals and Thomas Incorporated, 32 Court Street, Plymouth, Massachusetts, 02360, to construct a commercial solar array located on Assessors Map 104, lots 1049-A, 1049-B, 1049-D, 1050, off North Carver Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Sarah Stearns from Beals and Thomas, and I have the applicant also represented by Adam Schumacher.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you. Well, Mr. Bichette will read to the project. Before you get started, did we ever get directions on how to find this place?
We didn't get formal directions per se. It is off of North Carver Road and Carver Road, but not yet. But we do still have site visits to make to this site, as I'll mention as I read to the project.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Bichette, it's your turn.
So yes, this project is a proposed commercial solar project off of North Carver Road, which proposes to place a solar array within existing cranberry bogs, within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and within riverfront area as well. This is a project that at this point in time, I have not had a chance to review the wetland boundaries as depicted on the proposed site plans. We just simply haven't had the opportunity to do the walkthrough as needed for this project. But the hearing was scheduled, so we decided to go forward with opening it. So at this stage, I'm going to reserve my final comments as to what my thoughts are on it until we actually get a chance to go out and review the wetland boundaries and make sure everything's in order as far as that goes. But the applicant did want to have the opportunity to make a presentation about the plan. So at this point, Madam Chair, if I would turn it over to Sarah Stern, she could discuss the project.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sarah,
Dave.
you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll be brief, but just thought we'd take this opportunity to give the commission an overview of the project prior to our site visit and review of the wetlands. I also just wanted to mention that the landowner, Brett Meredith, is online, as well as our agricultural consultant, Ian Ward. Just if there are any specific questions that come of this evening, we're happy to note them down and return with responses or try to answer them tonight. But just in general, Dave, thank you for sharing the aerial. I think this, which is in the plan set, gives a good view to the commission for understanding of the site layout and location. As Dave mentioned, the existing cranberry bogs are located off of Carver Road, otherwise known as Route 58, with access on both Route 58 and off of North Carver Road, as you can see in the diagram on the screen. This is a cranberry operation that is run by the Meredith family, father, son. It's in Carver and Wareham, approximately 110 acres total for the site, made up of multiple parcels. The project that's proposed in front of the commission is a dual use, large scale ground mounted solar project that, as you can see from the diagram, is proposed in both Carver and Wareham, with the majority of it on the Wareham side of the land. And the project itself, of the plus or minus 110 acres, is about 33 acres total in both towns, with about 28 of that proposed in Wareham. And that's the area of the panels proposed. I know this commission is familiar with solar projects. I'm not sure if you've been through a dual use review yet, but I'm happy to give a very brief overview of the difference from a conventional array. So this is a program under the SMART program, which I know that you're familiar with, which encourages the continued use of farming on the land. And the goal of this is to keep the agricultural component of this project as the primary component. We, on our team, we like to say we want to keep the agriculture first. So that's really been paramount to the design and layout of these panels and infrastructure, to make sure that working with the landowner to be able to allow for sufficient area and space for harvest in particular, but movement around the site, and not compromise the agricultural component, and keep this farm going. This project, as with most, if not all, SMART program projects, does include equipment pads with battery storage, and you can see those. There are 2 battery storage areas proposed on the Wareham side of this project. Yep, there's the main one where Dave is pointing, and then a smaller one, yep, sort of nestled in the open area between some of the bogs. And again, because the intent is to maintain the farming capabilities out here on any piece of agriculture, not just limited to cranberry bogs, of course, but you know, pursuant to what we're discussing tonight, the main difference of a dual use project from a conventional array is that the panels are designed to be spread out further apart between rows, to allow for equipment to navigate between them, but also at a much at an increased height, so that equipment can pass below them. Another distinction for this project is that the panels are proposed to be tracking panels, and that's something that essentially the panels are set up so they follow the sun throughout the day. So that's something that really is important when you're concentrating on what's planted beneath them, and not having just one solid area of shade, but something that's moving throughout the day. As Dave mentioned, and in the application, we do note that work is proposed within BBW, which is in this case the wetland bogs, as well as buffer zones there too, and other resource areas that overlay on the farm itself from the adjacent Wewiantic River and associated BBW in the untouched adjacent wooded areas that you can see. This project does not propose any tree clearing other than the proposed new access. And Dave, I don't know if you want to point to that. I'm pointing to it, but no one can see. The new access off of the existing access road, off of Carver Road. And that's in an upland area, but I pointed out only because there is an area of tree removal proposed there, and just wanted to be clear that the remainder of the project has been proposed in an area that's wide open and does not include clearing associated with that. So that is a benefit to a reuse or a dual use of the existing farm. So really that's kind of the summary. Really just the takeaway is that The farm is really the primary goal here, to keep the farm active. This is an addition in compliance with the SMART program. I won't go into a lot of detail about the Wetlands Protection Act and all the nuance to that. Our application goes into quite a bit of detail in that, and we're happy to talk about that further as the review continues. And once we're able to look at the site and take a walk out there and look at the wetland line with Dave and anyone else who's interested, we're happy to talk in as much detail as the commission is interested in. Again, if there are questions tonight, we're happy to take them or note them. If there are questions related to the solar component specifically, Adam is here to respond to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on this particular project before we ask our questions? Okay. Michael.
I see a
Hold on a
hand.
second. Dave, were you gonna say something?
There's a
No, I'll
hand.
let the commission questions go through, and then Sandy, I'm sure will ask for public comment.
Yes, that will happen after we do our thing first.
Okay.
Michael,
A couple of things here. First of all, Sandy, just to let you know, it's very easy to find. Okay, I did get out there yesterday. It's just pretty much off of 58, or you see North Carver Road, and the bogs are right behind there. Okay, so
Okay,
it's very
thank
easy to
you.
find. Okay, as I just mentioned, I did get out there yesterday, and I did meet with Brett. And did I hear he's on the line or not?
Yes,
I
I
may have
believe
heard he
he
was
is.
on there. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But he did answer some of the questions I did have. Because I was also curious about this myself. Is how is it possible? Are they going to be high enough? Meaning that the panels, that is, are they going to be high enough? How's this possible? How's this possible? And there are some mock panels up that actually demonstrate this over their blueberry bogs. And if you kind of look at the top of the photo, you see those up there on the Carver side. So for now, I think I'm okay, because he did answer some of the questions. He did point some of them out. But obviously, I don't think a decision is going to be made tonight. And as Dave pointed out, so for now, I think I'm okay with questions.
Good.
And I'll let I'll let everything continue. So go ahead.
Kwame, any questions at this time?
No, this is a quick comment. I think this is a really nice technology that you're utilizing. But I'm just curious how tall these solar farms are. I think you said 13 feet. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, the solar panels, so these are, they're single axis tracking. The solar panels are placed on single axis tracking racks. And so that's why you can see the individual rows are in a north-south orientation, because they track from east to west during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the panels are flat, they are 10 feet above the bog. And when they're at their full tilt, the highest part of the panel is about 13 feet high, a little under that. But that's above the bog, and the bog is somewhere between somewhere around 2 to 3 feet or more below the adjacent grade of the dike roads. And so when you're so just keep in mind that as you're standing next to the bog, it will, the 13 feet of elevation, maximum elevation of the solar panels is actually 2 to 3 feet lower than that because of the elevation of the bogs.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep.
Anything else, Kwame?
No, thanks. Thank you.
Ron?
I mean, I am definitely really interested to kind of see all the components of this project. I know it's kind of in its infancy with us, but I'm really curious to see how this, this new layout and design is going to work, because I think if it can benefit both renewable energy source, but also not take away the existing use of the land. I think it's a win-win for everybody. So as far as questions, there's none. I'm just excited to kind of see where this project is going to go and what kind of benefits it will have all around.
Denise, any questions?
I actually have seen something very similar to this was used over the parking lot in my children's high school years ago, and it worked beautifully. Students were still able to use the parking lot. The height didn't bother or look terrible. I mean, this is really exciting. I'm really pleased to see this.
Oh, thank you. Sarah, question is that has Beals and Thomas put the same type of project over existing bogs before, or is this the first time for you?
So Beals and Thomas has worked on a number of dual use projects recently. They are all in construction right now, actually.
Anyone local?
They're all local. There are two that were developed with the applicant we have here tonight, and he can probably speak in more detail about those specifically if you'd like.
Yes, I would like to know if there's some place in which we just go look at something that is being constructed for dual purpose.
Sure. Yeah, actually, just up the road from this site, there's, if you're familiar with where the Berry Guys farm stand is, there's a project, the same type of project going in now on the bogs behind the Berry Guys farm stand. And it will likely be another few months before they actually put panels up. But right now they're driving in the piles into the bog, and or will be starting that within a week. And I know the piles have been delivered to site, so they're going to start putting in the piles imminently. And so you can, we're actually going to great extent to ensure that the construction activities don't damage or do as minimal amount of damage as possible to the vines. And Ian Ward, who's here with us tonight as well, can speak more to that. But the construction teams will be using bog or wetland mats to drive any heavy equipment out onto the bogs to ensure that the vines aren't damaged by heavy tread, and then they'll be driving in some fairly long piles. There's some areas of peat on those bogs behind Berry Guys that are up between 20 to 25 feet deep, and so they're driving in some cases 40-foot long piles. So it's going to be it will be very fun, or well, fun for us, very interesting for others to see that happen. But so that construction will be ongoing throughout the summer. And as one of the members mentioned, there is an existing pilot project on Brett's property over the blueberries, because we did a similar pilot project a couple of years ago over the cranberry vines at Mike Wainio's property behind Berry Guys, to see, to try to understand better what the impacts to yield would be. And now we're doing the same thing over the blueberries, because we're interested in possibly incorporating blueberries into this dual use project or others eventually. And so you can see at the pilot project at Brett's property now, it doesn't look exactly like what the panels will look like in real life, because it's a plywood mock-up that mimics the action of the single axis tracker. So it captures the position of the solar panel when it's at its maximum tilt in the morning, evening, and when it's flat during the day, to ensure that the maximum amount of shade is being cast over the blueberries so that we have a conservative estimate of what the impact to yield would be from shading from the solar panels. So at least from that pilot project, you can get a sense for the height and the spacing of these of the solar panel rows. And then you can also watch the construction happen here over the next few months just up the road.
Thank you. Sarah, has this project gone before the Carver Conservation Commission? And if so, did they have any comments? I know we're not supposed to care what the other one said, but we're both working on the same project. I was wondering if there was any concerns coming out of their conservation.
We are still in the process with Carver Concom. I'm sure if Dave reached out to the agent in Carver, she could share with him the details of their review, but no, we really have had a great discussion with that commission, and they're very supportive of the concept and are eager to see these projects come online because you know, I don't, not to put words in their mouth, but the feeling and the response that we have gotten from our hearings with that commission have been very supportive.
Okay, thank you. Now, is there anybody on the call that would like to comment on this project, knowing it's going to be continued?
I would, Lisa Morales.
Yes.
Good evening. I wanted to just share very quickly with the commission, just for the record, to have it on record, a very short op-ed from Mr. Fred Vidal of Northampton, who's a full-time farmer of 24 years. And he speaks directly to this dual use issue. And he says, over the past winter, I've had plenty of time to dig into the facts about Massachusetts' new dual use solar policy. It's being sold to the public as a rare win-win for the climate and farmers. Unfortunately, it's really just another win-lose. The winners are solar companies and big landowners. The losers are farmers, particularly those who lease or borrow land, and new entry farmers. Here are some of the false promises: that a wide variety of crops can be grown in 50% shade, the typical farm practices like plowing and greenhouse production can occur under them, that the hydrology and soil will be largely left intact, that the state will require farming to continue under the arrays, and that someday the panels and associated underground wiring will be removed. Here is some of the truth: that there is no science to support the claims of crop success under heavy shade, that instead the state agencies are approving conversion of prime irrigated cropland to low value pasture, that extensive trenching and import of sand fill will be permanently alter the soil structure, that there will be no agency oversight that farm production or revenue meet any quantified targets, that the projects will be owned by out-of-state corporations, that the cost of all farmland will now be inflated, further hurting all farm businesses. Farmers have to be business people as well as mechanics. We have to know what's realistic as well as what's possible. We get little terse sometimes when confronted with doublespeak, such as you can run a viable farm business under 50% shade and a forest of metal poles 10 feet tall. I've got one more paragraph, please. This is for this is 4 days ago in the Daily Hampshire Gazette. The solar companies whose executives I have heard call a potato a legume want you to believe that dual use solar means the farm business is just as viable as the solar or electricity business. The one business is based on hard work, sacrifice, and luck. The other is based on guaranteed government subsidies. 80% of dual use solar is a direct pass-through of the special ratepayer fees, state mandated. Massachusetts has created the largest of all state smart incentives for conversion of farmland to solar, as long as it is dual use, a concept which is unproven and whose results for the farming portion will be unmeasured. What I would like to know, is this commission going to require that this remain partly agricultural, and if so, for how long? And is there going to be a hydrology study done? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I'm going, anybody else that's going to comment, I'm going to say, please, it must be limited to what the Conservation Commission has control of. And yes, you read it, but very little of what you said can be done under the Conservation Commission bylaws.
I
But
believe you can
Yeah,
request a hydrology study, no?
could very well be, but most of your comments were not associated with that. It was dealing with farming and that. So if you have any comments associated with Conservation Commission oversight, if not, thank you very much for your comments.
Well,
Anybody else?
my questions were for the Conservation Commission. Are you going to require this remain dual use, or can they simply stop the agricultural component and now have only solar when it was approved as a dual use? That's a question under your purview.
All right, we'll consider that for our next meeting. Thank you. Anybody else?
You do have another hand raised, Sandy. Annie, you have to
Okay.
unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Annie. You're still muted, Annie.
I don't know exactly how this fits into your purview, but you'll let me know, I'm sure. We are talking about food, and I'm wanting to know about the kind of panels that there are. It seems like in these solar projects, panels aren't discussed. And when I look at panel construction, some of them are more pervious, susceptible to breaking seals, etc., and rainwater, etc., running into the panel and draining. That sounds like a big problem because you have heavy metals inside the panel, but I don't know how frequent, but I'm surprised that the kind of panel, the brand, the specifics of the panel I haven't heard discussed. So with food, as with runoff into the aquifer, of course, it's really important. And I also think, even though there may not be projects that are similar that we can look at or much data, there's got to be national and even maybe global data on these projects. And I would like to know where to find that, because I think this is really important food source. It's a big step here.
Thank you. We will, the question that will be asked at the next hearing is that the particular construction of the panel and the runoff of water, is that possibility of contaminating the vines underneath and the water runoff? That would be a question to Sarah and her team for the next meeting. As to where to go to find information, I don't know. Any ideas, Adam, Sarah, where we can direct the public to research this?
Yeah, there's a great frequently asked questions document actually that was put out by the Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Energy Resources that addresses the question about toxic, the possibility of toxic chemicals leaching from solar panels, as well as a lot of other commonly asked questions about solar equipment and solar projects. Be happy to circulate that document to the commission.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we are going to continue for Mr. Bichette to do his site visit. And
I do have a couple of quick comments, Sandy, just to follow up with.
Sorry.
Just for the commission members. So this is a project that is being proposed within wetlands. There is work proposed within riverfront area. There's been some discussion of waiving the 50-foot no activity zone for some of this work. So I do have concerns with all of these things. So I just want the commission to be conscious of that. And as we get further along, I'll obviously have better detail and more comments to discuss with the commission. But I just wanted to throw that out there that, there are some things the commission has to be conscious of in terms of a project that's being proposed within certain resource areas that typically we wouldn't allow. So just throwing that out there for the commission's information.
And I've not been following the plan. Is it planning that has this now? Or zoning?
I believe it's been approved at this point. Is that correct, Sarah?
That's correct.
So planning has approved it?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments from the people online? If not, I'll take a motion. Do you think, Dave, you can have this done by the next meeting?
I would request a continuance to the meeting of July 7th because I just don't think 2 weeks is going to be a sufficient amount of time to pull everything together. And that's just my opinion, but it's up to the commission ultimately.
All right.
So I guess just, so today's the 2nd. So we have a meeting on the 16th and then not one on the 30th. We're going 3 weeks to the 7th, just so I understand.
That's correct. Our meeting schedule is the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of every month. So therefore we would skip that week.
Okay, just making sure. Okay. I can agree with Dave to give him some more time to work on this and not have to rush it to moving it to the July 7th meeting.
There's a motion to continue until July 7.
You do have
Wait a
another
second.
hand up, Sandy, before you continue. There's another commenter with their hand up.
All right, as long as you know this has to be associated with conservation. Thank you.
So Sandy,
Yes.
this is Trisha. Hi. I'm not sure that this is, you have to tell me if this is associated, but I think it is. Sarah, I'm curious as how many panels are going up in here. So we have an idea of the breadth and size, because I know sometimes your requests are for a certain amount of acreage and you're not initially using that. So how many panels are we talking about in this site?
Sarah, Adam, can you answer the question? I know it's in the documentation. I just didn't print out the 20 some odd pages.
We can certainly provide that to the commission, the current layout.
Okay, for the next meeting?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
All right, Tricia. All right. So I have a motion and a second to continue until July 7. Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, we're continuing until July 7th. Thank you, everybody. Next one, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaws, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the notice of intent for Wareham Mass 3 LLC, Joseph Shanahan, care of Atlantic Design Engineers Incorporated, 39 Pleasant Street, Sagamore, Massachusetts, 02561. To construct a commercial solar array located on Assessors Map 91 and 74, lots 1000 and 1007, 91 and 101 Ferring Hill Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, Joe Shanahan is here.
Joe, anybody with you?
Yes, I have our engineer, Patrick Johnson from Atlantic Design Engineers also.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette, your turn.
Yeah, so this project site is at 91 and 101 Ferring Hill Road. And this project involves the construction of a commercial solar array in the buffer zone 2 bordering vegetated wetland at the site. A 20-acre solar project with battery storage component is proposed at the site. Again, on this site, I have not had the opportunity to walk the wetland boundaries depicted on the site plan at this time. I will be scheduling a site visit with the project engineer to review these wetland lines and to review the site overall. So again, this is a sizable property, as you can see, and so it will take a little bit of time to review. This project would also be reviewed by the town's consulting engineer, but this has not been done yet at this time as well. So The site would be clear cut and there would be perimeter fence installed around the project area that you see. But at this point in time, as with the last one, I would recommend a continuance to the July 7th meeting to review the wetland boundaries and also to get comments from the town's review engineer relative to the stormwater structures and so forth.
Thank you. I'm writing as fast as I can write. Joe, do you have any comments to make?
Well, I'd ask, Madam Chair, would you prefer that we wait until we get that input from Mr. Pichette and your consulting engineer before we make our introduction of the project? Or would you like us to do that with the understanding that we're certainly not going forward this evening and until you receive that input later on?
I'd ask the commission whether or not they'd like to wait for comments when we have more from our engineer and Mr. Pichette has walked the perimeters. This is just the project for the solar array, is that correct?
That's correct.
Madam Chair, I
Okay.
would like to hear an overview myself. It would help me as well, sort of get a sense of what to review and so forth. I generally have an idea, but I think it's also good for the commission members as well to hear some of that.
All right, Joe, you're up.
Happy to do it. Again, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Mr. Pichette, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Joe Shanahan. I'm employed by Con Edison Clean Energy Businesses, and I'm here tonight to introduce this notice of intent on behalf of the applicant Wareham MA3 LLC. Briefly, Con Edison Clean Energy Businesses develops, owns, and operates renewable infrastructure projects from coast to coast. As the second largest operator of solar projects in the United States, we're working hard to build a better, cleaner energy future to help meet the country's energy needs.
Shut up.
Excuse me, Mr. Pichette, will you please mute everybody? I do not want comments. Thank you.
Are we all set, Madam Chair?
I hope so. I don't want
Thank
that.
you.
I don't want that happening again.
Thank you for that. We're here tonight to present a 4.4 megawatt AC or alternating current solar project, developing 2 solar arrays on about 20 acres of this 44-acre site at 91 and 101 Fairing Hill Road. The site is currently undeveloped woodland with residential properties to the south and west and undeveloped woodlands to the north and east. I've been doing these projects for a long time, and most importantly, I would indicate this project is being developed with a 100-foot setback from Fairing Hill Road and maintaining a substantial natural buffer around the entire perimeter, resulting in minimal, if any, visual impact from Fairing Hill Road or to the residential properties in the area. That having been said, I'd like to introduce Patrick Johnson. He's Senior Project Engineer at Atlantic Design Engineers, and he can present the technical aspects of the notice of intent. Patrick?
Yes, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, just making sure. Patrick Johnson with Atlantic Design, and just a quick summary of what is being provided in our NOI that you've received. The site is located off of Fairing Hill Road. There are 2 major wetland systems, an isolated vegetated wetland along the west side, and as well as a bordering vegetated wetland along the northeastern side. And this was delineated by our wetland scientist in March 2021. The site does not fall in any DEP mapped surface or groundwater protection areas or town designated aquifer protection or watershed protection overlay districts. The site is not located in a FEMA flood zone or in an estimated habitat of rare wildlife or property habitat of rare species as mapped by NHESP. So And also we are not in an area of critical environmental concern. But moving on to the proposed work, our work proposed we do have some work proposed in the 100-foot buffer zone. It is minimal and consists of some small portions of chain link fence, clearing, erosion control measures, and some portions of some stormwater detention basins and their outlets. It should be noted that no solar panels are actually proposed in the buffers, and no work is proposed in the town of Wareham 50-foot no activity zone. And these locations are at the northern, southeastern, southwestern portions of the site. More so, we're providing a 6-inch wildlife gap underneath the fencing around the perimeter, as well as a non-invasive native seed mix. Additionally, we also have erosion controls at the limit of work and intermediate rows of erosion control throughout the site to limit erosion. We've submitted a stormwater report and anticipate a positive feedback from the reviewing engineer. And we believe we're compliant with the Mass DEP Wetlands Act and the town's conservation bylaws. But that's the summary. And with that said, we hand it over to you for any comments or questions.
Thank you. Michael, any questions?
Well, probably similar to the last one, not a whole lot at this time. However, are these going to be similar to the last ones where these panels are gonna like move, try to, I guess, like follow the sun, try to like harvest it at the same time, like to try to have as least impact on the land as possible. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I'm not going to comment on the previous proposal. I will indicate that proposal and this are different in a couple of different ways.
All right.
Number one, this isn't proposed as a dual use project. We're not proposing any type of agriculture to be maintained under these solar panels. I'll be candid with the board. I started through the permitting process in the town of Carver with a dual use project. And ultimately my company decided, because of the current state of DEP regulations and a little bit of uncertainty, we walked away from that project. So this is not a dual use project. You also, I think, were trying to describe what we call a tracker system, where the panels move to follow the sun to get greater productivity. This is not a tracker system project either. This is a fixed tilt solar project. The panels are both 3 feet off the ground at their lowest point, and they're 12 feet off the ground at their highest point. If you have other specific questions about the design, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Okay.
Michael, are you good?
I think so, because I had a difficult time trying to find this land. So just be certain that this is not on a nearby cranberry bog. This is on the land behind 91 and 101 Fairing Hill Road, correct?
That's correct. That's correct, sir.
That's probably why I couldn't find it then.
It's very, very densely wooded, as Mr. Pichette will find when he tries to tackle it.
Yeah, because I could not find it. I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And just as I drove down the road, there was like then there was a cranberry bog. I was like, so okay, I think I got a better sense of the area now. Okay.
Thank you,
I
Kwame.
got now. Go ahead. Good.
No, I mean, I know where it is. It's very dense, and we probably can't make any decision right now because there's probably wetlands around the area, I assume. So until that gets squared away, I'll just wait for further evaluation and study.
Okay, Ron,
Planning, zoning, have they had any view of this yet, or has this not gone to them yet?
No, sir, it's been filed with the planning board. We're scheduled to be in front of the planning board for the first session of the public hearing on the 28th of June.
Okay, I mean, other than that, I mean, I'll keep comments until we get some review from Dave and have an opportunity to kind of scope the land and whatnot.
Joe, it's Sandy. The question I have is, Denise, I'll get you in a minute, but is this for in front of planning for the solar or for the subdivision?
It's going in front of the planning board on June 14 for consideration of the preliminary subdivision plan. And it goes before the planning board on the 28th of June with regard to the project itself.
Will this subdivision impact conservation?
No, basically for full transparency, what happened is we were in the process of engineering this to begin a permitting path. And as you're probably aware, the town began consideration of a much more restrictive solar zoning law. So in order to protect the site and go forward with the project, the only way you can do that is to file a preliminary subdivision plan with the planning board, follow within 7 months of a definitive subdivision plan. So basically, the roadway will not be within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Denise, any questions?
So if I'm understanding this project correctly, it's one of the projects that is largely deforestation and soil removal?
I would indicate that deforestation is a word I hear often. We are cutting about 20 acres of land. I would indicate to you that obviously any proposed use of this site is likely to involve substantial tree cutting. The difference between our project and any other use that might go there from a climate perspective is I would tell you that the greenhouse gas offsets from this project over the next 25 years will be about 200 times the sequestration of those same trees if they were left to stand there. I'd also indicate to you that because it's a solar project, once the project's done and we loam and seed beneath the panels, it remains a wildlife habitat. And as Patrick indicated, wildlife can go across the site by virtue of the fence being 6 inches off the ground. And finally, and equally important, when we seed below the panels, which is about 90% of the disturbed area, we'll be seeding with a pollinator-friendly seed mix. It'll grow in as meadow, and it will be a great benefit to the ecosystem and the pollinators in the local area.
And the soil removal?
Well, there's very little soil removal. There's some grading in order to maintain the grades that are required for the layout of the solar panel. But quite candidly, we remove as little soil as is absolutely possible. There's no need to move soil.
Okay.
We drive posts and hang the panels on the posts.
Okay, anything else, Denise?
No, that's my two concerns.
Sandy, I had a quick follow-up question.
Yes, Dave.
Just for clarification, in the application, there's mention from Goddard Consulting that this site is mapped as natural heritage endangered species area. So I just wanted a clarification, which is correct in your view?
Are you asking?
Patrick, are you there for me?
Yeah, it was my understanding it was we were not in a mapped zone, but let me get back with you on that after I revisit the report.
Okay.
Okay. And the question was national heritage?
Yes, because in the report from the wetland consultant who flagged the wetlands, they indicate that it is mapped as natural heritage. I think they may be incorrect. When I looked at it, I didn't think that it was, but I just want to make sure that we're all seeing this in the correct way and that we don't have conflicting information.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that,
Yeah.
needless to say, Mr. Pichette. I can tell you that before we ever got involved in the site, we did what we call a deep drill of a solar site assessment. And my understanding is it is not so mapped, but we'll double check that for you.
Thank you. We did receive several emails on this project, and one was from the Robert Gleason, Vice President, Land Acquisition Committee Chair for the Wareham Land Trust, and another email from Nancy McHale and Kathy Papalato, both from Wareham Land Trust. And I would recommend that we read this into the minutes at our next meeting on July 7, but I'm now going to open it up to the public and read for comments on this project. Remember, must be limited to conservation bylaws. All right, hands up. Nancy first, I think. we
Madam
lose-
Chair, may I just make a request of the chair that anyone speaking in the public hearing give their address also, please?
I'll consider that, but I don't think so. I just want to know who they are. Address has nothing to do with this. Thank you.
Good afternoon or evening, Sandy and commissioners. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak. I'm wearing a dual hat.
And please, sorry, Nancy, your full name, because not everybody knows you.
Nancy McHale. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
A dual hat. I am the Wareham Land Trust steward for the Faring Hill Conservation Area that the town owns, which abuts this property. I also own property on Faring Hill, and my backyard abuts the Faring Hill Conservation. So full disclosure that yes, do I have a vested interest? Absolutely. But regardless of where this solar project ends up, and I will probably not likely see it from my house, but I do have concerns about the environmental impact of it. There are a number of issues that we raised in our letter. One of them is the waiver that's being requested to the waiver from the setbacks for the fences. Those are really unacceptable and should be unacceptable to this commission. That there's no need, the site's large enough that they don't have to encroach that far with, to waive that. The other thing is that this is prime forest land. It has been undisturbed for generations. And I would highly recommend that an ecological study be done of this area so that you know what the flora and fauna are that are being removed. I would also ask that the waiver that's being requested not to have to identify trees of 18 inches in diameter at breast height. Please do not waive that. We need to know what resources are up there and are being lost. And there is the third waiver.
Some of these waivers, Nancy, aren't related to the Concom's rules. These are more planning board regulations, so we wouldn't be able to weigh in one way or another on those particular waiver requests.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I misunderstood what they were asking the waivers for in the planning board plans. And I thought they were asking them for you. Okay.
Yeah, no, those are standards in the planning board rules, and they're asking for waivers to those rules under the planning board's review, but those are not standards that we have under the Conservation Commission.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for the clarification. In terms of natural heritage endangered species, we know there are box turtles in this area, and in 2015, when a grant was put in there for potentially to purchase this property for conservation, it was recognized by National Heritage and Endangered Species as being box turtle habitat. And again, the wetlands, yes, there are wetlands back in there. They need the protection. Please don't scrimp on the setbacks or anything like that. I appreciate that, and thank you very much for having those letters read into the record. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else to comment on this project?
Yes, please. I've had my hand up.
And you are?
Lisa Morales. I live in Wareham.
Okay.
Thank you. I would like the Conservation Commission to start taking into consideration the aggregate amount of deforestation in our town. And the nearby towns need to be cognizant as well, because we all breathe the same air and we have one aquifer. And the aggregate, deforestation means removing trees. You're deforesting the area, and there may or may not be some other use for this property that would, but this is what you're asking for. And Madam Chairman, I think it's really offensive to you as a well-informed commission to tell you what that sequestration is not going to be the equivalent of all of this in a time when none of us are going to be here to know that. Since the applicant has put that before the commission, I would like the commission to ask for the science behind the very emphatic statement that this is a better benefit than would be forest sequestration.
I'm happy to do that, Madam Chair.
Sorry, excuse me. Keep in mind, Lisa, you really have got to focus on what was in the control of the conservation bylaws.
And as part of this public hearing, the applicant raised that and made a very strong statement to that effect. I also think we need to start looking very clearly at the temperature warming that you're allowing by allowing this number of solar fields. And the applicant himself made a very emphatic statement that had it not been for one person's decision to postpone town meeting, this would never be before us and this land would be protected. So I think that it's not, I think within the purview of this commission, that the commission needs to take into account the will of the people of Wareham. And the people of Wareham have spoken about the misuse of the land. And we will speak again on June 12th about the clearing of this land. So I think the commission should take into effect the will of the people who elected them, the people in this town, as to what the land use that the townspeople wish to have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? And remember, stay on conservation bylaws.
Yes, hi, Kathleen Melker.
Yes?
Yes, hi, I'm in a butter to this proposed project. I would like to thank Nancy McHale and Lisa Morales because they did hit on all the talking points. We do have the box turtles. I have a big raccoon right now in my backyard who came from across the proposed site. I think this is a terrible, terrible waste to cut all those trees down. We do need the trees for the clean air. There's so many other options to be explored out there, and I hope Mr. Shanahan and the Con Edison Clean Energy companies will start exploring other options such as unused transmission lines now that they're closing power plants, contacting very large companies about putting solar arrays on their roofs, such as the Target company, Lowe's, Walmart. There's plenty of other options.
Conservation bylaws only. Okay?
I'm just an abutter on this, and I just feel that this is a terrible thing we're doing to Wareham.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on this project before we continue it until July 7?
You do have another hand up, Annie, if you just unmute yourself. You need to unmute, Annie.
Can't hear you.
Got it. Okay. Hi, Annie Hayes. I'm in a better, and I bought an old farm to connect the Fairing, or they're connected, but to strengthen the connection between the Fairing Hill Conservation and the Westgate Conservation. And I am right up against the back side of this property. And yes, I have box turtles, Asian box turtles on my property. I've seen them mating, I've seen them nesting, I've seen tiny ones. And I have numerous vernal pools. So with the help of a member of the Conservation Commission, I'm studying how to identify vernal pools. And right now, there's still some window to identify the egg clumpings of the salamander, the fairy shrimp, I think it's fairy shrimp, and the frog species. So I am surprised. I think I heard that there was said to be no vernal pools on this property, even though there's a lot of wetland, and that the study that concluded that was done in March. I don't know how you can look for vernal pools in March. I may have misconstrued that. Please correct me if I have. On an early spring night around here, the noise is deafening of the frogs and the creatures around the vernal pools. So I'm very concerned about that. And I agree with the previous speakers. I've just watched a Cape Cod Climate Commission webinar, and the title is Forests or Solar, a False Choice. We absolutely have to have both to reach our net zero carbon goals. And there is no better system than forests because of sequestration of carbon in the root system, as well as capturing carbon by the photosynthesis. It's the best system there is. So when this proposal says it's a great contribution to the environment, I feel sick to my stomach, because we should, I know, Sandy. Let me back to what else can I say about the water. I'm going to have to think about that, because I'm just aghast sometimes at this choice. The other thing that I want to know, and it's a sort of a trick of words, but it's water related. There's a water betterment on this property. Has that been waived?
I'm not sure if it has, but again, that's really not relevant to our review.
Yeah, I know, but it's important, isn't it? How do I find out then, please? Can somebody tell me?
You would have to contact the water department, the Wareham Water Department.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nobody else, I'll take a motion to continue until July 7th.
Motion to continue to July 7th.
Second,
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame, Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, we're continued until July 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, is there anybody here for Herb Wyden's project? Or did he come and go?
I'm not sure if there's anyone here yet or still, Madam Chair. I could go over that project. It was relatively simple. And if there's any questions that need to be answered that we can't get an answer to, that someone has, then we can continue it till the next meeting.
So why don't you describe it, and we'll see whether or not the commission wants to approve it based on your description.
Okay, we would just need a motion to untable.
I need a motion. I have a motion to untable.
Second,
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, it's untabled. We've read the public hearing, so we're ready to go with Mr. Pachette's comments on it.
All right, let me just pull the plan up here so you can see the site.
And while you pull it up, I've got a disclosure. Years and years ago, Herb Wyden was my manager at Digital Equipment Corporation, and that's why his hair, if there's any left, is all gray. Try to manage me.
Well, thanks.
God, it was 40 years ago. maybe 45 years ago, long time ago. Okay.
Okay. So this subject property is at 85 Edgewater Drive, and it involves the reconstruction of this existing deck that you see here, which is within 20 feet of what would be considered the coastal bank, which is this retaining wall right here. As part of the project to reconstruct this, they would need to put in several new footings where these are indicated in red, to shore up or solidify the proposed deck work that needs to be done. This is all sitting over a concrete patio currently, and they would have to drill into the concrete patio to place these pilings in this location, but not up on this one further away from the resource area. The work is relatively minor. I had no problems with the project. It's simply a reconstruction of the existing footprint and bringing it up to code based on the building code requirements. So I would recommend the approval of this project with a negative determination number 2.
Okay, questions on the board, Michael?
Same thing. It seemed pretty basic as well. Pretty much nothing else. Thank you.
Kwame,
No questions, thank you.
Ron,
No questions.
Denise,
None.
and I have none. Anybody on the call would like to comment on this project? Hearing none, I'll take a motion for approval with a negative 2.
Motion to close the hearing.
Oh, yeah, we had to do that first. Close the hearing. I'm tired. All in favor of closing the hearing, Michael?
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, we've closed the hearing.
Motion to approve the project with the negative determination number 2.
All right. Second.
I have a motion. I heard a second. All in favor, Michael?
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. Thank you. So I guess you'll get a hold of Herb and let him know, Dave.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, continued hearing, George and Carrie, George Barrett. Is there anybody here for this particular project? I saw Margaret.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Slavin and members of the commission. Margaret Ishihara, attorney for the owner applicant, George Barrett. Mr. Barrett is.
Yes, I'm present.
He's
Hi,
present.
George.
Right.
And also present are Mike Pimentel from JC Engineering as well.
Hello, everybody. For some reason, I can't get video up on my screen, so please forgive me. You'll only be hearing my voice.
Okay, Mr. Bichette. We have a modified plan? No.
No, I don't have a modified plan, but I'll just go over the project again real quick.
Yes.
So the site is at 4 Vern Ave in the Agawam Beach area, and the project involves the construction of a gravel road and a single-family dwelling within a coastal flood zone and an isolated wetland. A 32 by 58 foot dwelling with attached 30 by 30 foot garage, septic system and grading is proposed at the lot. At the last meeting, we had continued the hearing because I had stated that there's a wetland there that has not been depicted on the site plan and that we needed to have a revised plan reflecting the location of that wetland in order for the commission to go forward with this review. So to this point, I have not received any new information on this, so I'll leave this up to discussion from the applicant and then questions from the commission.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to check my hotspot to make sure I wasn't running out of juice. So Margaret, George, Mike, do you want to comment why we don't have a new plan with the wetlands?
Yes, so There had been an issue raised by the conservation agent, and also I think there might have been an email from the DEP analyst that looked at the file when it gets filed with DEP Southeast Regional Office, and indicated that they thought that there was a wetlands area at the southwest corner of the proposed project. So we disagree that this is a regulated wetlands. But however, we did have, there's two potential state regulated wetlands resource areas that we reviewed. And the third one being, of course, the local, the Wareham local wetlands bylaw as to whether it's a freshwater wetlands or not. So with respect to the issue of whether it might be some sort of bordering vegetated wetlands, Bob Gray from Sebacia Environmental, who unfortunately could not be with us this evening. Mr. Barrett had been in touch with him, but he had a conflict with another meeting with the Sandwich Conservation Commission. However, he has been out to the site. He indicated to Mr. Barrett that he did not find it to be a bordering vegetated wetlands. And I would just say that it's not bordering on anything. So I suppose that just from that, it's not a bordering vegetated wetlands. It's not bordering on a water body per se. The other issue that I think has been raised is whether it is an isolated land subject to flooding. And I think Mike Pimentel can better speak to that. But my understanding of it is this, that Mr. Barrett and his wife have owned this property for maybe 40 years or so. And in the history of their ownership, there is an area in the southwest corner that's in dispute here this evening, in which there is water that does gather there at some times of the year, but not year-round. And in Mr. Barrett's experience, the maximum extent of that has been to a level of about 4.5 feet elevation. So Mr. Pimentel has gone through and based on that 4.5 foot elevation, made a calculation as to whether this particular area amounted to an isolated land subject to flooding based on the state wetlands requirement. And I think I'm going to pause there. I'm getting outside of my area and ask Mr. Pimentel, if you don't mind, just to go through the calculations and the work that you did to determine that it was not an isolated land subject to flooding.
Okay, so what we did was we looked at the 4.5 foot contour line that basically surrounds the low area in this southwestern side of the property. And it basically coincides with the standing water that I found out there yesterday morning after we had a lot of rainstorms over the long weekend, and noticed that the 4.5 foot contour basically contained the water on the site that I was able to calculate to be approximately 500th acre foot volume of water, and the requisite is a 1/4 acre foot. So with that, I can honestly say that, you know, it's not classified as an isolated land subject to flooding. Mr. Barrett has owned this land for approximately 45 years. He's never seen the water, you know, risen to any elevation higher than the 4.5 foot elevation. And so based on that, we did our own calculation and determined that it was well below the 1/4 acre foot volume requisite that the Wetlands Protection Act, Section 1057 would require. But yeah, we before the long weekend, I actually went out to the site to take a look at the area. I saw nice tall green grass in the lower spot of the property, but not really any standing water. But after the weekend, of which we had a lot of rainstorm, I did go out there and I noticed that there was standing water to approximately that elevation 4.5. So I feel pretty confident that that contained volume of water that we observed during my visit there yesterday is much less than the required quarter acre foot of volume of water based on the state, and so, and that's what I have to offer regarding the state defined wetland aspect of the project.
Great, thank you, Mr. Pimentel. So I think the third issue here would be whether this particular area in the southwest corner of the lot meets a definition of freshwater wetlands under the Wareham local wetlands bylaws. So your definition in the local wetlands bylaws states that the term freshwater wetlands shall include without limitation those areas within which saturated or inundated conditions exist other than salt marshes. So we're not talking salt marshes, so that's just out. And my take on saturated or inundated conditions is not a temporary or sometimes or once in a while sort of condition, or a condition in which there might be water. So saturated or inundated, in my mind, indicates some sort of ongoing or permanent flooding or a constant presence of water in the area. And I would say that based on the owner's own observations of what's happening there, and based on Mr. Bob Gray's determination that it wasn't bordering vegetated wetlands, based on, I'm assuming also his looking around at the whether they're wetland species or not, I would propose to the Conservation Commission that it doesn't meet your definition of freshwater wetlands, unless your definition of freshwater wetlands is an area in which there is sometimes water, in which case, you know, the parking lot at Stop and Shop, I suppose, would be a wetlands area after this past weekend. So that's where we're at on that. That's why we have not revised the plan. We did not want to put on our project plan something to which we do not agree. It would appear to be an admission somehow that there are certain wetlands resource areas on there which we do not think exist. And the other practical aspect of this also as well is that with the particularly with regard to the local wetlands bylaws, that with your 30-foot no build, no activity setback from local wetlands bylaws, and your setback of 150, and the best we might get is we might get that varied down to 100 foot setback from the local wetlands bylaw for the septic system, that frankly, the septic system, the access, which is going to be over that southwest corner of the project site, and possibly the house, would be required to be sited entirely off the lot. So that's our position. That's our position on that. And I don't know if there's a, as I said, Mr. Gray had indicated that he had a conflict. I don't know if he might be available at some later meeting, if the board would like to see that.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Yeah,
make a
Dave,
couple
I
of-
was going to say, would you like to comment on those definitions of isolated wetlands and freshwater wetlands and et cetera?
Yeah, so I've been out there a couple times, and so in terms of wetlands, Margaret alluded to what if there was a ponding in a parking lot at a store. Well, wetlands typically do have wetland vegetation, which you do have in this case as well. And oftentimes you have soil indications that indicate that the presence of water over long periods of time, which I do believe you also have here as well. I met out there with Mr. Gray, and he, as far as I'm concerned, agreed that it was a wetland, but he didn't necessarily think it was jurisdictional under the state act, which I don't necessarily disagree with. It may not meet the standard of an isolated wetland under the Wetlands Act, but I do think it's a wetland that is protectable under the wetland bylaw. And one of the reasons why the wetland bylaw was put in place was to protect those wetland areas that were smaller than what was protected by the state. So I respectfully disagree with Margaret that this is not a wetland. I do believe it is. And so, you know, I don't know what else to say beyond that. I've said it a couple times, and that's just my thoughts on this particular situation. And I do understand it's a tough situation with regards to the lot, but I've got to focus on what I see and not how it may or may not result in what could be done with the lot.
Thank you. Questions on the board?
Yeah, as far as Mr. Gray's determination of the wetland, do we have that documented anywhere on how this would affect the project?
Margaret?
But I guess that's two questions. One is, do we have like a wetlands report or?
Well,
maybe a lack of
well,
wetlands
well,
report?
well, hold on. It sounds like we know that his feelings about if it is or isn't a wetland. We know that. Do we have that documented anywhere, how that would impact the project? I think that's where I'm getting at this point.
No, I think that my statement as to how it would impact the project would be based on if there is a local wetlands bylaw resource area in that southwest corner, which had been shown in an email or something from DEP, that from a GES, from a long view. So my statement is based on, just going out laterally from that 30 feet for, no build, or 100 or 150 feet from there for the subsurface sewage disposal system, that it basically puts the project and the access not doable at all. I mean, it really takes away any economically feasible use of the property. And Mike Pimentel might be able to speak better to that in terms of, if it's correct that there is a local wetlands bylaw in that southwest corner, where does anything fit on the lot? So it's not so much a question maybe of Mr. Gray, it's more a question of, let's assume, if we assume that it is, then we have to take the setbacks, and where does that put the project?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, if you determine, let's say, the elevation contour, let's just say the elevation contour 4 shown on the plan as being the edge of the, let's say, locally defined wetland, then essentially with the 30-foot no touch, no activity zone buffer, it would essentially choke off the entrance to the site. And then also with a 100-foot buffer zone from the edge of that, let's say contour 4, it would essentially render the entire property of Mr. Barrett's unusable for the construction of a house and for a septic system.
All right,
Right, so go ahead, next.
Kwame?
No, Michael hit it on the note, so I have no questions right now. Thank you.
Ron?
I mean, I think we have a very complex situation here, and going back and forth with what is, what isn't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I see issues on both sides, but I think at the end of the day, I agree with Dave in his thoughts and opinions on whether it is or isn't something that is jurisdictional to us, and that it is, and we just need to figure out what it is and what it isn't, and make a decision on where it needs to go or not go. So I think with Dave on this, that, we do have a wetland issue here, and we just need to figure out exactly what the boundary is.
Denise, any questions?
How does that get determined?
I think Mr. Bichette has to reach out and talk to Mr. Gray? Visit the site and make the determination that whether or not whose wetland definition we use going forward. I mean, Mr. Bichette is our agent, and to me, he makes the call. And that's my take on it. I mean, it's
and who is
for the commission's viewpoint, that sort of has already been done, and the applicant has chosen to take a different position, and therefore this is where we're at. So if that's still the position of the applicant, then I would say that the commission has the option then to make a decision on the project and say, if you agree that there is a wetland there, then you would deny the project based on a lack of information shown on the plan relative to wetlands that are protected under the bylaw. So that's an option for the commission, or you could continue the hearing for further evaluation by the applicant as well. So there's a couple different options you can take, but if the applicant's position is that they're not going to change their viewpoint, then I think there's no reason to carry on with this as we move forward.
so is it possible that we can get the plan with our agent's definition of the wetland on it versus the plan that we have now, which has no wetlands on it?
So you're reading my mind, Sandy.
I want to see where is this corner?
So
Where is it wet?
Right. So I think that if we can do this without prejudice to our point of view, we could certainly, and Mike may tell me, no, we can't. We could certainly put a line on there which says, extent of conservation agent determination of, local wetlands bylaw, local wetlands resource area. And then that would be your determination as to where it's located. And I think you can do that as part of a notice of intent. And then going forward, given that, what is the commission's point of view on, the project itself vis-a-vis the what you would then determine to be the local wetlands resource area?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Barrett.
One aspect that Bob Gray mentioned to me was that it was totally within the board's discretion to determine whether it was worthy of being protected. Meaning that, his comment both on site and on the phone regarding vegetation, he didn't think it was worthwhile doing because it was such a small area. And he didn't meet any of the definitions that he addressed with DEP. He didn't meet their level of oversight. And he felt that it was well within the commission's oversight to say, yeah, it gets wet occasionally under specific circumstances, and that you could determine that it was not worthy of protection, for lack of a better term.
George, would he be willing to put this in writing so we can share it pass it out to Conservation Commission? You had a phone call, Margaret had a conversation. I'd like to see it in writing and understand in black and white his conclusions.
I can ask.
We can certainly make that request.
Thank you. All right. Denise, any questions?
No, I think everything's kind of,
Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I believe what we're asking for is a set of plans with the wetlands as defined by our agent indicated on it with a mark that this is Mr. Bichette's take, and would like to have Mr. Gray's written report regarding what he's found in that corner for wetlands. All right,
And you also get comment from the public, Sandy?
I was going to.
Okay.
Is there anybody online that would like to comment on this project?
Yes, my name is Sarah Constant. I'm 21 Arlington Road in a butter, and I have in my hand a GIS map that has the wetlands on it, so I'm just a little confused as to why there's a question about that, and do feel a real concern over that you can pick and choose which rule applies. I mean, wetlands are wetlands, they're there, and the bulrush is there. It's clearly a wetland piece. So I would be concerned about a precedent of saying you can apply the state rule here and the local rule here. And it's interesting that GIS map has not ever been shown, because it very much shows the wetlands right there on the site, and I have it in my hand.
Yes, I've looked at that same report. I've looked at that same GIS mapping and noticed the same thing.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none. Margaret, do you think you can get us a modified plan by our next meeting?
Your next meeting is,
16th.
I'm going to put that in Mr. Clemental's court. I don't think you want one of my drawings. So, so it's, engineers are so busy these days. I don't like to
Well,
promise.
we'll continue it into the 16th. Hopefully we'll have a report from Mr. Gray and a modified plan. We'll see what it is on the 16th.
Very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if we had to, for some reason or another, have to make another request for the continuance, we'll just have to do so, Ms. Slavin.
Yeah, thank you. We'll deal with it on the 16th, whether or not we need to continue until July 7th. Okay?
Absolutely.
I need a motion.
Motion to continue till the 16th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron, Sandy, yes, we're continued to the 16th, and if it continues beyond that, so we'll find out. Next one is Edward and Susan Cabral. So Dave, you're bringing it up?
Yep, I'm bringing the plan up here. Just give me a second.
No. Trying to make sure I'm off this meeting here.
You're still on the meeting, George.
For some reason, I can't shut off. I don't know what's going on.
Oh,
Okay. I don't know. You won't let me go, Sandy.
oh. Well, turnaround is fair play. I stay on planning. You can stay on conservation.
I'll say one thing. I don't envy you your agenda. There we go. Leave meeting. Good night.
Good night, George.
Okay, you ready, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so this project site is at 4 Point Road in the Swiss Beach area, and this project involves the reconstruction of a seawall along a coastal bank and the construction of a garage in the buffer zone to the coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone. At the last meeting, we had continued this hearing because we were waiting for one component that was asked for by the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries in their comment letter, which was a salt marsh mitigation plan to be submitted as part of the application information. So we hadn't had that up until now. So we have now received something from the wetlands consultant that's working on this, which I think suffices as a mitigation plan for the project. So we do have a DEP file number for the project, and I guess we'll ask any further questions that commission members might have. But beyond that, at this point, I'm okay to move forward with issuing the order of conditions.
Is there anybody online that is comment? Sorry, I'll think. Is there anybody online that is representing this project? I forgot to add.
Yes, Madam Chair. Jim Peterson from Alpha Survey, as well as the applicants, Ed and Susan Cabral.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Is there anything you want to add to the comments that Mr. Bichette just gave us?
No, I think that Dave has seen what was put together. I know there were a couple of passes back and forth for David's review to make sure that we were meeting the requirements for the commission. It seems as though we have, so that's all that I have to offer at this point.
Okay. Questions on the board? Michael?
No, not here.
Kwame?
No, all set, thank you.
Ron?
No further questions.
Denise?
No questions.
Dave, did we have any particular concerns or additions to the notice of intent, our standard order of conditions? Were we going to deal with?
Yes,
Can't
we did
remember.
have
We're going to deal with dewatering? No.
Yes, we did have a few extra conditions, which I can go over. So we did have the condition of requiring the salt marsh monitoring plan and
Yeah,
mitigation.
we got that.
And mitigation for any observed losses. So I would want the conditioning to be put in the order to account for and reflect that. And also that any of the material that is in front of the existing wall that is not going to be reutilized has to be removed from the site. And also for the requirement to install the subsurface drainage structure as shown on the proposed plan. And no machinery on the beach or salt marsh.
Wait a minute. Okay. Questions on the board? Did I ask this yet? No.
Yeah,
I did, didn't I?
yes, you did.
Yes.
So what we have, sorry. So what we have is we have received the salt marsh mitigation plan. Dave, you're good with that, right?
Yes.
And we have what, 4 conditions above and beyond our standard order of conditions? And which Dave just mentioned, and we could just say our standard order of conditions plus what Mr. Pichette mentioned. If anybody's happy, anybody on the line would like to speak to this comment on this project? And I'm losing it. Anybody like to comment on this project? Hearing none. Need a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing. Second.
In a second, all in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, the hearing is closed. All right, I'll try. I need someone to make a motion that we approve the project with our standard order conditions plus the 4 items that Mr. Bichette listed.
Motion to approve the project with the standard order of conditions plus the 4 items that Mr. Pichette has mentioned.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Andy, yes. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone.
Okay, before you get all the paperwork from Dave before you start the project.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Anthony and Ann Antonellis. Anybody online for this project?
Yes, it's Brian, GAF Engineering.
Oh, okay. Dave.
All right, let me just get this plan up here.
Why did we continue it?
We continued it because some members weren't able to locate. the site.
Okay, all right.
Just pulling that up so everybody can see that.
All right, Dave, it's your turn.
So this project site is Lot B on Old Onset Road. And the project involves the construction of a single-family dwelling and associated site work in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. 40 by 70-foot dwelling is proposed with associated grading and the limit of work being 57 feet from the edge of the wetland. At the last meeting, I was okay with the project and we did get a DEP file number, so I did recommend the issuance of the order, but there was some questions about the site and where it was located, whether or not it was staked, so that's why the meeting was continued. So if everybody's comfortable with it at this point, then my recommendation stands as I made it previously.
Okay, Michael.
As everybody saw, I passed out the directions to the site, so I have no other questions about it, so I'll just let everybody else who got a chance to see it, go ahead and ask there, so go ahead.
Kwame,
No questions. I visited the site. Thanks.
Ron,
No questions.
Denise,
No questions.
Sandy, I have no questions. Anybody would like to make comment on this project? Brian, did you have anything to add? I forgot to ask.
No, nothing to add.
Okay. I'm hearing none from anybody online that would like to comment, so
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
And I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes,
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, the hearing is closed.
I believe this was just the standard order of conditions, Dave. There was nothing additional, was there?
That's correct.
So I make a motion to approve the project with the standard order of conditions.
That's the motion.
Second.
Thank you. I got a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes. So Brian, you go for it. Just see Dave for the paperwork before you start anything, okay?
Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next continuing hearing is a Randall Rivera. We got a new
Riva.
plan this morning.
Riva.
Is there anybody online that represents this project?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Bob Rogers from GAF Engineering, and Randall and Diane Riva are also in the meeting.
Okay. Mr. Bichette,
Yep, let me just pull up this most
because
recent
we got a new
plan.
plan this morning, right?
Yes.
they're gonna put stairs in, how are they gonna get on and off the deck? Go through the house?
That's correct. I have 3 sets of sliders off the front of the house, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So this site again is at 10 Captain Collis Drive. And the project involves the construction of decks in the buffer zone to a coastal bank and coastal beach and within a coastal flood zone. We've had a couple different versions of plans that were submitted, revisions to this as we've gone along. Currently, there is still decks proposed within the 30-foot no activity zone. They have also proposed to remove some existing concrete pad from the 30-foot no activity zone, as we had seen in the last version of this. So at this stage, I would just make my comments on the existing wood deck where they're proposing the expansion. Again, I don't really see the need other than for the want to do it. There's an existing deck there that can be worked with. The expansion of the other deck in this area is excessive. It should be minimized to whatever extent is needed to create a landing space to get out the door for the slider that's been put in there. And that's my take on it, and I'll leave it up to the commission to discuss further.
Thank you. Bob, any comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. So just prior to the last public hearing, which was the first continued public hearing, we had presented the plan that showed the willingness of the Rivas to remove an amount of cement concrete pad that exceeds the combined square footage of the proposed new deck and the proposed enclosure of the existing deck. And some of the commissioners had not had a chance to go out and review the site. And so primarily, I believe, because of the new plan and the fact that at least maybe 3-4 commissioners wanted to review the site, we were more than happy to grant the continuance. I don't know how many of those commissioners viewed the site, but as we were waiting for that to occur, Mr. Riva and his wife decided to try and make further improvements. And there was a perception that at the first continued public hearing, the last hearing, that some of the commissioners, or at least one of the commissioners, was concerned about the amount of sonotubes that were being installed under the new deck and the reconstructed enclosed deck. And so the Rivas hired a structural engineer to review the design. And so the revisions that we made that we were only able to provide to your office today was to show, we had 16 sonotubes originally, and now we're down to 5. And the closest of those 4 out of the 5 is 20 feet off of that retaining wall. And so our hope was that if people would view in the yard and weigh, it's construction that's all above grade, and it's results in a reduction in pervious surface at the property. Yes, we can further reduce the proposed deck. We can stick with the dimensions of the existing wood deck. I advised him against removing the stairs going to the concrete pad. And we understand where David's coming from, but we still feel like we're in a position where we're reasonably asking for what is shown on this plan as being a net positive for the environment, and certainly not a negative in any way to the environment, but recognizing that we are proposing work which we would normally not propose within the 30-foot no touch. This property is unique in that we have the ability to remove the existing concrete pad portions of it or additional portions of it. You know, the Revis have had some discussions with the building commissioner. We're certainly going to apply for the building permit, get a denial letter that may already be in the works, and proceed to the ZBA. But we don't feel like we're asking for something that is either environmentally unfriendly or harmful. And we feel like we've given the commission something that should be considered in terms of the additional removal of impervious surface. Excuse me. So, you know, Randy and Diane can answer any questions that you have. We most desperately would like to leave this hearing tonight with, if not an approval, we need a clear direction. We need clear input from the commission on what would be acceptable for the new deck and for the reconstruction of the screen or reconstruction of the existing deck, which just needs to be done anyway. But its purpose in being converted to a screen porch is because of melanoma and mosquitoes, and the addition of the traditional deck is to, you know, replace what they have now. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Randall and Diane, anything to add to Bob's comments? If not, I'll go to the board and ask for questions.
I just thought that Bob's presentation was put online. We tried our best to sacrifice what we could on the project to hopefully gain a positive vote from the board. Like I said, we were down from 16 sonotubes to 5. It's, you know, structurally, it's going to be an approved deck. It's money well spent, we believe, at this point, and hopefully it will have a happy ending. And the only thing I can say is we've been here for, our family's been here since the 1950s. And when I applied for the building permit, I did put 3 sliders out front thinking that I could get a deck, but evidently I was wrong at that point. So right now I am at the mercy of the board, and hopefully we can work it out somehow, if not get approval tonight.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Michael?
Yeah, Dave, you didn't say there's not another proposed deck somewhere, did you, or not?
No, I didn't say that. Just what we've seen before.
All right, that was all I had. Thank you.
Kwame?
Yeah, so you're removing a concrete slab that was on the bottom.
Yes, sir, that's correct. That's the hatching at the bottom. It's 17.7 feet by 27 feet. It's a total, it's about 100 square feet, 30%, a bigger area than the new deck and the addition to the existing deck.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Ron?
Excuse me, I have one other comment.
Yes.
We did send a picture over to Mr. Prachette on the existing conditions, and which he has. I wish I could put that up on the screen for the members to take a look at who haven't been out there.
Well, it was sent to us electronically this today, so we've all have access. We've all. Had
You saw the
Thank
picture,
you.
the existing
Yeah.
pictures. Okay, all right.
Ron?
So I don't have an issue with replacing the existing deck because one, it's already existing, so there'd be no new work. But I just can't get past the issue of the amount of additional work to be done to add a new deck within that 30-foot zone. So I just, you know, that's my comment, that fixing the existing deck to make it more structurally sound, 100% I'm there, but I just don't see getting past the amount of work within that 30-foot zone.
So, Madam Chair, through you, if I could ask Mr. Bessie, what amount of new deck would be acceptable in your opinion?
Being outside of that 30-foot zone, which is, you know, is really not much. I mean,
okay. That's fair. That's fair enough.
Okay. Denise?
I've been out to this site several times, and I understand the frustration of not being able to do what you want to do to your house. This has a couple concerns for me, especially that it's within the 30-foot zone, that they want to extend a deck, that they want to screen in a deck and put a roof over it, which could eventually just end up being additional living space as far as I could see. And the structure that's already on the property is over the limit of what it should be to start with. There's just, I agree with Ron 100% on fixing your deck that you have there. And you put in 3 sliders that at this point go to nowhere. And in order to put something in so that I guess you could get out of the house, if Mr. Bichette feels that that would be acceptable, then I would think that the board should consider that. As I said, I understand the frustration, but it's within the 30-foot no activity zone on a piece of property that has a structure that is oversized to begin with.
So, Madam Chair, I would just say that 80% of those comments are more appropriate to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Riva has reached out to his neighbors. All of his neighbors are in favor or unopposed to this project, which again is more appropriate to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We feel like we have a very good argument before them that this is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. But, we're also, no one wants to admit that it's a positive aspect of this proposed construction to remove some or possibly all of that cement concrete pad. We haven't ruled that out. And we are here for protection of the environment. And if there's a way that a project can be tailored to improve the environment, that's what people should be encouraged to do.
Okay. Now, if I'm taking a look at the existing wood deck, would be expanded 2 feet, 2.8, would be expanded about what, 2 feet on 3 sides of there, or 2.5 feet on 3 sides. Okay, and the sonic tubes will be, I can see whether 2 of them are going in. The new deck, the 2 sonic tubes are just falling short of the existing concrete pad.
Correct. They both line up, and that's the purpose. And if we need to reduce the size of those to gain approval, we would want to do that uniformly.
Is it that they want both decks to be the same size or distance from the water? Is that why they're expanding the existing wood deck to square it off to the new deck?
Well, the new deck remains to the size that we originally proposed, and it had stairs going to the cement concrete pad. And so we have eliminated the stairs, and we have eliminated 5 sonotubes from underneath that proposed deck, because again, these are first floor decks with about 3-foot separation to the ground. And so it is still going to be impervious underneath these, with the exception of the sonotubes. And that's why Mr. Riva was motivated to work with a structural engineer to try and make sure that we could present a plan that had the least amount of sonotubes that was necessary, and the existing ones will be removed. I think Mr. Riva would be okay with keeping the existing dimensions of the existing wood deck and screening it in, and just making that amount of reduction for the proposed new deck. It's all subjective, And so, right now we have a positive net reduction of impervious, and we could do more in that regard. And this is the guidance that we need.
There's part of me that says, well, darn, you paved it from virtually halfway from the house to the water's edge already, right? It's already been concrete pad.
Because it matches up with it matches up with the concrete deck.
And to me, there's a piece of me that says, all right, putting two sonic tubes of the new deck inside the 30-foot no work zone, I don't have a problem with it since most of that land is already disturbed with a concrete pad. I do not have a problem with putting in two sonic tubes for the new deck. The third sonic tube is outside the 30-foot because that pad has already disturbed all the land from the house to the water. And I have no problem with the existing wood deck staying at the existing dimension and having it screened in and roofed over. And I certainly appreciate cutting out the removal of that second concrete pad in excess of what you're asking for. That's my feeling. That's me. Anybody else want to comment on it?
Madam Chair, this is Randall Reaver once again.
Yeah.
I've heard what you said. Thank you for the rebuttal. This house years ago was in my grandfather's name in the late 50s, and he's the one who did all this work to the house. Originally, when he owned it, there was a complete wraparound porch in the front of the house where these decks are proposed right now. And we were just, trying to keep the same historic value of the house in the family. I know it doesn't have any, it doesn't pertain to the 30-foot rule, but there were decks and a covered porch exactly where these decks were years ago. So I think they got knocked down around the early 50s. And so basically that's all I can say. And there was another comment about the screen porch being a year-round room. That's totally false. This is going to be a screen porch for summer use only. So I want to make that point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. What do you do, folks?
Motion to close the hearing.
Well, I would say, Madam Chair, that if this is the extent of the opinions that we've received, this is what we asked for, then we're going to ask for a continuance from tonight's meeting. And so that I will work with Mr. Riva. And if it's acceptable to maintain the existing dimensions of the existing wood deck and screen it in, and if I can work with him on removing additional portions of the cement concrete pad, perhaps we would add stairs to the proposed deck that is outside of the 30-foot no activity zone. I would certainly recommend that to Mr. Riva, but we do not want to close the public hearing. We wanted your input tonight based on this plan, and so we're going to take that and we're going to just try one more time and make it as best as we can
Bob,
for the
I have a
environment
question.
and for the commission. And so that's our request for a continuance to the meeting of June 16th.
Here's a question for you. If for the new deck, the stairs coming out would be anchored on the concrete pad. So the stairs have absolutely no additional impact onto the 30-foot no work zone because it's placed on concrete that already exists, correct?
Correct. I agree with you. But if we're going to
I was surprised to see the stairs go. Yeah.
We're all working together. If we can leave a small portion of the concrete deck and have stairs associated with it, I agree with you 100%. But if anyone else has some guidance to give us, we would receive it. But we're going to take, as much guidance as we can get, and we're going to go back and we're going to decide based on Diane and Randall's wishes. We're going to minimize it further and try and make it acceptable to the commission.
And I continue it until the 16th. We'll have, I hope, have both of our full board. We'll have our 2 missing members with us at that time, which would make 6 to comment on it. So I need a.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam, did you motion to continue it?
Yes, until the 16th.
Right. Well, I second that right there.
I need a motion. I can't make the motion.
No, I
Motion to
thought you
continue
did, I'm
the
sorry.
hearing
All right,
to
motion to continue to
June 16th.
16th.
Yes. I heard a second. All in favor? Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, we'll continue it until the 16th.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, extension requests.
We have 2 requests. One is for Mass Highway, which is for the Route 6 and 28 reconstruction project. That order is due to expire soon, and they are requesting an extension so that can carry on. So I would recommend the extension for that, and they're requesting a 3-year extension, which in this particular case, we know it's going to be more than a year that it's going to take to get this done. So I would recommend the 3-year extension.
That's the recommendation. Comments, Michael,
None. Thank you.
Kwame,
No.
Ron?
I don't know that people want to see that project take another 3 years, but no comments.
Sandy, so we need a motion to extend the project, sorry, a 3-year extension.
Motion for a 3-year extension on the Route 6/28 reconstruction project.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, Michael,
You got
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, 3 years. I'll tell Alan it's going to be another 3 years.
Don't,
But I think we're used to
Hopefully
it
it
by
doesn't
now.
take that long. The second extension is for a project at 103 Maple Springs Road. And this was for the construction of a house. There are some features that have yet to be completed in terms of the landscape work and a retaining wall that was proposed, which they just have not been able to complete at this point, and they're requesting a 1-year extension. So I would recommend the issuance of that extension.
Okay. Someone make a motion.
motion to extend 103 Maple Springs Road for 1 year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a 1-year extension. Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Andy. Yes. Okay. We now have enforcement orders.
The first one that we have on the list is for the property owner was listed as Casey Robinson, but the new owner is Robin Combs, who is on the line with us. And this is regards to a shed that's been started to be constructed at the edge of Heinz Field.
Oh, the picture that was sent to us saying, why did we permit this?
Yes.
Shed, okay.
So,
All right.
so she's here on
Robin,
the
you're up.
she's here on the line, and I did speak to her about it, and we are going to go there and take a look at this directly. And she did have an engineer put together a plan on this, which she just did send me late this afternoon. But I have not obviously had a chance to go to the site and review where these wetland flags are in relation to the shed, but she's here to comment on that as well.
Okay, Robin, comments. You're muted, Robin. You need to unmute yourself and tell us what you did.
All right, good evening. Well, I obviously made a mistake. I had tried to get in touch with the building department. I'm sorry, I've got a cold and my having sinus issues, but I had tried to get in touch with them for about a month and a half, and no one was returning my calls. And so I talked to my architect about the shed. And he told me that if it was under 200 square feet and under 15 feet, that I was allowed to build it without a permit. So obviously he was wrong. And I shouldn't have. Well, I mean, I've known him for many years and we've worked on other projects together, and I just didn't think to question that. And I started building the shed and I was told to stop. And I did have a survey done. I sent Mr. Pichette today the certified plan. I have a draft with me that the shed that was there before was the same size, a little bit bigger, and it was in the opposite corner of the lot in the back, and it was inside the 30-foot no activity zone. And I took that down and built a new one on the opposite corner that is as far away as I could get from the, on the back property line, away from the wetlands. I would like to apologize that I thought that I was doing the right thing, and I built it, with the 4-foot sonotubes with the big foot on the bottom. Well, I didn't use a big foot, but I poured an extra foot by 18 inches of concrete, and I anchored everything because of, the possibility of flood and hurricane and all that. Excuse me. So I just wanted to talk about where we could go from here.
Hey, Dave?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is meet with you, Robin, there and kind of take a look at things with your plan, and then make some decisions after that, because like I said, I haven't had a chance to review the wetland flags that are shown. And so I'd like to do that, and then we could revisit this maybe at the next meeting.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, Dave, what do you want from us? Do you want us to ratify the enforcement order
Sure.
or wait?
I would say to do that at this point. Yeah.
Any questions, Michael?
At this time, thank you.
Kwame,
No questions, thank you.
Ron?
No questions at this point. We'll just wait for Dave to make his review of the property.
Yep.
Madam
And
Chairman,
Denise, wait a
No.
second. Denise, any
Sorry.
questions?
No question.
Okay. Yes, Robin.
could I request that I can close it up somehow, lock the door? My neighbor called me today and told me that there were people in the shed having sex in my shed. I would like to be able to close it up somehow, if that's okay with you guys. I know I'm not supposed to do any more work on it, but that's kind of bothersome.
I think putting a lock would not interfere. Dave?
Yeah, if you want to board it up or do something like that, then I
Okay.
have no problem with that. Yeah, that's fine.
And a board instead of the door from the old shed.
I mean, if you have a door, that's great. I don't know, there's some windows. I don't know how you're going to deal with that.
Oh yeah, I have to board those up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So Dave will we'll report on this next meeting. All right?
Yes.
Okay, and then we will talk about the fine when we get your report at the next meeting.
Very
All right,
good.
so I need a ratification of the enforcement order.
Motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. Okay,
Okay.
Thank
feel
you.
better, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
I'll check in with you and we'll set up a time to meet.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, good night. Next one, please.
The next one is for Dock House LLC, which is at a site at 28 Winship Ave. And this involved the installation of pilings to an existing pier with no order of conditions. So I met with the owner there and discussed things and explained that, they needed to have an order of conditions to have done that work. And so told them they have to do an after the fact filing. And so that is what's going to take place. I had spoken to them about being at the meeting here tonight. I'm not sure if anyone's here at this point, but it doesn't appear so. So I don't think there's too much else to report other than to ratify the enforcement order and require an after the fact notice of intent.
And how long do you give them before for them to file after the fact notice of intent?
Whatever the commission wishes. You want to do 30 days, that's fine. Because they're going to have to get an engineer out there and do the survey work, and they're all backed up and everything else. So I would say start with 30 days and work from there.
Okay. So who wants to make the motion to ratify the enforcement order and put a time frame in which they are to file the notice of intent?
I'll set a motion to ratify the enforcement order and put a 45-day window for them to get the plans in based on the nature of the world. I think 30 is a little too tight, so we'll give them 45 and see what they come back with.
Okay, that's the motion.
And I'll second that.
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes. Next, please.
The next was Russell Crean, which was the site at 24 and 28 Old Glen Charlie Road. We spoke to the gentleman at the last meeting, and he was going to meet with the building inspector about this site and get back to us with some comments on that. I have not heard anything on that at this point, so I would just say we need to continue this till the next meeting.
Okay. Well, that's the one with the goats
Yes.
that was housed too close to the water for the good runoff. Okay, so there's nothing to do on this. It's just going to continue. We'll have it on the next enforcement order list on the 16th.
Yes.
Next, please. Pink.
Yes, this was the site at 33 East Boulevard. This was the site that we had issued an enforcement order to this owner for some alterations to vegetation along that coastal bank. I still have not heard from the property owner, so I will have to continue this one for one more time to try to get that owner in front of us.
Okay, and Robert Lampton, Wareham Lake Shores, he had some alteration shed and fencing from the last meeting.
Yes, and he is actually on the line with us. He's one of the last holdouts here. But in any event, yes, this is at 10 Wareham Lake Shores Drive, and this did involve some activities along the waterfront at this property with no approvals. And so I met with Mr. Lump at the site. We went over what needed to happen and what needs to be removed to correct the circumstances there. And he is here to comment on the site.
Okay. Bob, you're up.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me right?
Yep.
Yes.
So I have a little thing here that I'm gonna read because I always forget what I wanna say. Well, I'm 78 years old and I'm a handicapped individual with spinal stenosis and severe arthritis. One of the main issues, so I also wanted to add that I use a cane or walker and on really bad days, sometimes crutches. The main issue of the things that I did, and I also want to say that I wasn't aware that I needed permits for anything I did. I just thought it was all right. It's very visible from the street. I wasn't trying to hide anything. Everything I do, you can see as you drive down the street. But the little platform that I built, it's half in the water and half out. I think it's about 7 feet by 7 feet. I built that the main reason, or two reasons. One, for something for me to sit on when with a chair when I was down at the waterfront with the family. I don't do well on the beach. And the other thing was to get in and out of my canoe. I can't do it from the water. I can't do it from the existing dock because it's too high. The thing I built is about, I guess, 12 inches above the water. And I can pull the canoe up to it and get in and out of the canoe. It was built without any footings that penetrate the lake bottom. It just sits on some blocks. It's half on the beach and half in the water. My regular dock is too narrow for me to even feel safe on and never go out on that dock. As far as the shed goes, I just didn't realize, I didn't know anything about the 30-foot buffer. I mean, that was something that was new to me, and most of my neighbors don't even seem to know about that. But my shed is like 18 feet from the waterfront. It's only a small shed. It's like 6 foot by 6 foot. I didn't build it. It was just dropped there. But also it has no foundation. It's just sitting there. So I don't know what else I need to address. Just Dave could tell me.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
these are some of the features that you can see. That's the existing dock, and some of the vegetation has just been cut down to that level. Let me see if I can get over to this. So these are some of the features that are placed right along the water's edge. Oh, that's a different site, sorry. So this fence and shed, and then there's another small dock structure right behind this that is the issue. So none of this was permitted or should be there. So this is what I've stated to the owner that needs to be removed. And for any of the applicants who haven't been, any of the members who haven't been by there, you might want to take a swing by, take a direct look at it, and then if you wish to make decisions at the next meeting, then that's fine, but it's up to the commission. This is what exists there currently.
Yeah, they're welcome to come here, and I would walk the property with them the best that I can walk it. The fence was not put up for privacy. It's right at the bottom of the hill. These pictures are not showing the hill. The shed, if it went any further away from the water, would be on the hill. It's a pretty severe hill that goes from my property up to the road. And there's a tremendous, in a heavy rain, I put that fence up to stop the water that rushes through and brings everything from the lawn, the leaves, the pine needles, and even dirt onto the beach and into the water. And it was leaving ruts amongst the trees that are on the water side of the fence. The trimming that I did that Dave pointed out, the property was eroding at that point. There's tree stumps about 5 or 6 feet into the water that shows where the property used to be. And he said that he planted all that stuff and advised me to trim them. I think I overdid it. I only did it once, and it was, I overdid it, but they're all very healthy and they're gonna grow. Nothing's dying there. They grow better when they're trimmed, like most things do. The canoe rack, Dave said you're on the water's edge, but it's like it's 18 feet from the water, and it just seems to me that, again, it doesn't penetrate the ground, and it just seems that it's less impact than the canoe or kayaks are sitting on the ground, which they were doing before I built that thing. Now, obviously, I can move everything if I have to. But the dock, the little dock structure, which I guess there's no picture of, I can't move. Otherwise, it won't do. I can't take it away from the water. It no longer serves the purpose of what I have it for. So I get when the fuel is in the water to get in and out of it. And the handicap is not getting better. It's getting worse. I've had operations and I'm done with that. It's not- On the commission comes to my property and I'll walk it through it and show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Dave, what's your recommendation? Do you think even if a notice of, an RDA had been submitted, any of this would have been permitted?
No, I don't think any of it would have been permitted under an
Because it's all
RDA.
within it's all within 30 feet of the water's edge, right?
Yes, if he wanted to apply to get some modification made to his existing dock so that it was easier to get in and out of a canoe, then I think that's something that could be entertained by the commission, but just randomly putting in things that, weren't reviewed by the commission, I don't think is okay, and I don't think we would have approved that the way it currently is.
So, Bob, the fence, could it be moved up the hill a bit, 30 feet from the water's edge?
Yeah, of course I can move the fence. The shed is much more difficult. It's a price thing. The cheapest price I got on somebody has with a forklift with bobcat with a forklift. Somebody coming.
Is the fence just sitting on the ground or is there sonic tubes?
No, there's none of the stuff in question penetrates the ground. Even the little dock, which you're not seeing, does not penetrate the water. Goes in the water, obviously. Doesn't penetrate the surface of the water. It's in about maybe 10 inches of water, and then half of it is on the sand. And it seems to me, especially since I'm a handicapping, I'm not trying to do that because of convenience, just so I can go fishing. There's not many things that I can do, and one of the reasons I even live here is Glen Charlie Farms is to be able to go fishing. I can't even do that now. But I actually didn't finish that thing because I had to put a rail on it for me to hold on to get me out of the canoe. My left leg, I cannot lift it any higher than 6 inches. So I need to go down into something rather up. The dock that Dave talked about redoing is in terrible shape. That whole dock, it has to be redone. It's just not safe. I'm not happy with being on myself. And it's not wide enough because I have to worry about falling off the edge.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, Dave, do we want an RDA?
For what?
The request for the platform in the water? Or do you want us to just say you have to move the shed and you have to move the fence?
Well, that's what my recommendation is for those features. As far as for the dock, anything like that does require a notice of intent to put a dock in the water. So that would be needed for something like that.
A notice of intent?
Yeah,
A full engineering plan?
Well, it doesn't have to be an engineered plan. Like, it could be like this one that we just did for this woman, P.S. Santini on Glen Charlie Road.
That's right, that was a hand-drawn, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it still has to be a notice of intent because you're proposing to build something in the water.
All right. So I guess we need a notice of intent for the platform in the water so we can get in and out of the canoe. The shed has to be moved and the fence has to be moved within outside 30 feet from the wetland, from the edge of the pond. Is that it?
And the canoe rack thing.
And the canoe rack thing. Bob, how level is your land?
You're looking at the only level part to, are you looking at the same picture I am right now? Of the
Yeah.
canoe rack and- Yeah, so to the right of that, it starts going uphill.
Okay, so,
None of these things would easily conform to that. What if the canoe rack was on wheels? What if it was a movable structure?
because if we didn't have the canoe rack, all those canoes will be sitting on the ground.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's where they spent the first 3 years. The shed's been in that spot for 4 years now. The canoe rack they just built.
All right. I'm gonna ask the commission, comments. Michael,
I don't disagree with many of these things. I just have to see the site just to get an idea of like the ground layout and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't disagree at all with any of these, like notice of intents and RDAs and all that. So, go ahead, continue.
I'd be glad to show you around. I'm almost always here. So.
Kwame, any comments?
I just have to agree with Dave. I mean, most of these items probably are gonna have to be pushed back or removed, unfortunately, unless there's some other way. But how long has that shed been there?
4 years.
So, and it's not like you can just pick it up and move it, but I mean, some of these
No,
things
it's
is gonna have
the
to.
heaviest, I didn't build it there, it was brought in by truck.
Yeah, so.
Previous place I lived.
I mean, one person sees something, the next person does something else. So, like I said, I just have to agree with Dave and maybe see how we can continue this. Thank you.
Ron,
I mean, it's the same thing everybody else is saying. I mean, it's one of those situations where, you know, you didn't know about it, but it's there, and you know, it just has to be addressed because we have to stay consistent with everything that we do as a commission. So unfortunately, going through the process is something that just has to be done.
hey, Dave, did we approve the did we ratify the enforcement order last meeting?
I don't think so because the owner wasn't here, so no.
So we need to ratify first.
Yeah. Say the motion, please,
So
Ron.
make a motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Thank you.
Second,
And a second, all in favor, Michael,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, now. All right,
If the commission wants to go by and check it out for those members who haven't seen it and then talk about it on the 16th, then that's an option as well.
Yeah, why
okay,
don't we do that?
yeah, why don't you bring it
All right.
back on the 16th?
Okay.
Okay,
Do you guys want to make an appointment to make sure I'm here and all come, do you all want to come at the same time or different times? How do you want to do it? I think some people came by looking from the street, I think. Just, I had a feeling that somebody was spying on my property, but you can see everything without getting out of your car, but I'd like you to come on.
I can hear you. Okay. Where are we? I think that's done with the enforcement orders.
Yes, I think the owner was asking if people wanted to do a a certain appointment, or are you just going to go by on your own?
Yeah, I'd like to be here to walk you around.
What I
I
can do,
personally-
what I can do is email his number to the members, and if you want to go by, you can call him and set up a time to meet with him
Yep.
if you're going to go individually.
Thank you. That's probably
Yeah,
the best.
that-
Give us,
yeah, that-
give
That-
us Bob's contact information. Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That does it?
That does it for me, Sandy.
Can I just say
Anybody
motion to
else?
close the hearing? I mean, motion,
No.
motion to close the meeting. I'm jumping right to it, guys.
Yes, you are. Any other comments before we take that up? We are going to, in the meeting of June 2nd, I'm going to say, I'm not going to ask. Wave your hand if you want to go tonight. Thank you. All done.
You got a whole
See you
bunch of
on the
time out there,
16th.
Sandy, still.
Huh?